What's up everyone, welcome back to a brand new video. So I've done similar series to this before where Kakarot is sent away somewhere or raised by someone different. Surprisingly enough though, this one's probably the most obvious example, and I haven't even touched upon it. Instead of sending Kakarot to Earth or somewhere random, it's not really too unlikely that Bardock might decide to send him right to Raditz, and we'll explain more in a bit why he chooses to do that here. And with Kakarot being sent to Raditz, that would mean he's part of Vegeta's crew. So what would happen if Kakarot was part of Vegeta's crew? Our story begins with Bardock sending Kakarot away pretty much like normal. And Bardock makes a slightly worse choice here. Sending Kakarot to Earth would be safer, but instead, he goes for the riskier option, sending him right to Raditz. The reason this is riskier is because Frieza will know about the other Saiyans anyways, but Bardock has a way around this. Of course he knows Frieza would probably be suspicious of this, but he had thought of that. Kakarot is sent directly to Raditz and joins Vegeta's crew. And he gave Raditz a message. He wanted Kakarot off planet, and told Raditz not to come back to the planet no matter what. Which Raditz already does in canon anyways, he never comes back to the planet. And when Frieza learns that there's another Saiyan there, they could simply just say he's at an age where he's supposed to be sent out. And for his first mission, he's going with his brother Raditz. That should quell any suspicion Frieza had. Besides, Kakarot's really weak Saiyan, so he shouldn't really be too big of a problem in Frieza's eyes. And once Kakarot arrives there, Vegeta doesn't really like this too much. When did they become a daycare? They don't have to babysit Kakarot. It's already bad enough that they have Raditz in their crew because Vegeta kind of sees him as dead weight, and Kakarot's even weaker. Not just because he's young, but because he's weak in general. Vegeta doesn't need more people dragging him down. Nappa doesn't really know how to feel about this either, especially because he's the one basically watching over all the kids here. He just hopes Kakarot's going to be a better version of Raditz, essentially. And as for Raditz, he doesn't really care either. No one really wants Kakarot here. Raditz views Kakarot as kind of weak, and kind of a burden to the group too. Bardock thought this might be the best option because at least he'll be with someone he knows and other Saiyans in general, but nobody actually really wants Kakarot here, at least not at first. Frieza eventually does learn of Kakarot's existence too, and he doesn't really pay Kakarot any mind. His power level is incredibly low, and the story that they gave him checks out too. He is at the age where he's supposed to be sent out, so it makes sense. And what's one more Saiyan, especially with such a low power level? Also, Frieza probably would recognize his hairstyle and think he's related to Bardock somehow, remembering the Saiyan that rebelled against him. But for Kakarot's sake, we'll say that Frieza doesn't really care about that here. First of all, because it could be a coincidence that they have the same hairstyle, since a lot of low-class Saiyans look alike anyways. And even if he is related to that other Saiyan, well, he's seen what Raditz could do, and it's pretty much nothing. Plus, with how weak Kakarot is right now, he doesn't really care. It's not like Bardock could do anything against him anyways either. So if these two are related to Bardock, who cares? They're insignificant to him. And he'll make sure they don't rebel. And think about how Kakarot's feeling here. He's remembering everything. He knows what happened, he knows he was sent off planet, he doesn't lose his memory, and he's around people that are just ignoring him basically. He doesn't really enjoy having to be here, but he knows Planet Vegeta's gone and he has no other choice. He's glad he's at least alive. But it irks him so much that these people are just looking down upon him like that. He knows he's young and he's weak right now, but he'll prove it to them. He'll prove to them that they're wrong. He'll be stronger than any of them. He'll be the strongest Saiyan. Not just that, no. He'll be the strongest thing in existence. And this mindset sticks with Kakarot as he continues to grow up around them. Of course, he slowly does grow stronger. Realizing he's a low-class Saiyan and he's behind everyone, he puts in a lot of hard work to train. With Raditz reluctantly working with him to train him up too. Kakarot still holds a grudge because Raditz basically ignored him for a bit too, but at least he and Raditz kind of share something in common. He knows Raditz is only trying to help him now because the two of them were looked down upon by the higher class Saiyans. Raditz is basically joining him out of pity. And there definitely is truth to that. But Raditz shares kind of a similar mindset to Kakarot. Especially with Kakarot training so rigorously, he's starting to grow stronger and he's slowly catching up to Raditz. Raditz can't let his little brother get ahead of him. So he'll keep him at arm's length. Not only to keep an eye on him, but so he can grow stronger too. And this creates a weird rift between the Saiyans. Yeah, Kakarot is part of Vegeta's crew and they go on missions together all the time. But Vegeta never pays Kakarot any mind. He views Kakarot as a weakling and a burden on the group. Kakarot somewhat sticks with Raditz, but mostly he's on his own. So the Saiyans as a whole, they basically only stick together because they're Saiyans. At least he and Raditz are low-class warriors and brothers, so they have that in common. But otherwise, they basically all just coexist. They might have a common goal at overthrowing Frieza, but it's not really prominent at the moment because they know that's kind of a pipe dream. But as for Frieza himself, he kind of sees an opportunity here. An opportunity to turn the Saiyans against each other. Sure, he could just kill off the Saiyans as is, but their strength is still useful. Especially Vegeta. He's still a relatively strong soldier, and it's good to keep him in check. Besides, he has a constant watch on these Saiyans. Keeping track of 4 Saiyans is easy, especially now with the whole planet gone. But seeing that Kakarot's kind of the runt of the group, Frieza wonders if he could cause a divide between the Saiyans. While he's not too concerned about them at the moment, it'll be good to make the Saiyans lose trust in each other. That way, by manipulating them, there will truly be no threat from the Saiyans. The years grow on by. Vegeta, Raditz, and Kakarot grow up, with the latter two becoming stronger warriors, still not on the level of Vegeta and Nappa, but much stronger than before. And Frieza's taken note of Kakarot's growth too. His motivation for strength has led him to grow pretty fast. He's on Raditz's level now despite being younger. And for the record, Raditz is also relatively stronger too, mainly trying to keep up, but also because he's been training with Kakarot, that does help him grow stronger. The closer the two of them have to a bond is training together. They are brothers, but as Saiyans that doesn't really mean anything to them, especially with how they met each other in the first place. But Raditz is glad that he has an alliance with Kakarot at least. Over these years, Kakarot's grown more and more accustomed to the group, since they've all been sent on missions together. Vegeta and Nappa still look down upon those two Saiyans, especially Kakarot. And this kinda does hold the two of them back. Since Vegeta pretty much views them as dead weight, this means they get to do less on missions and they don't grow as much from the missions. Kakarot's initiative to actually train himself, that's what helps him grow stronger. And Frieza can clearly see this. And he can also clearly see that Raditz and Kakarot are slowly becoming better allies. They're not close yet, but Frieza feels like that might happen soon enough. And he doesn't really want these Saiyans to be too close, because if they are, they could always rise up against him. Not that that would be an issue, but he'd rather have them be loyal soldiers, rather than being loyal to each other. So Frieza butts in, wanting to prevent the Saiyans from banding together. He likes disorder among their few ranks. So he approaches Kakarot one day. He's been keeping an eye on him and he sees that Kakarot's had some great growth. Kakarot can't tell what Frieza wants, but he could tell he wants something. Especially because Frieza's trying to act nice almost. It's clearly a facade because Frieza's not a nice person. But he has a proposition for Kakarot. He'd like him as one of his right-hand men, alongside Zarbon and Dodoria. He doesn't care what kind of class of Saiyan he is. He cares that Kakarot has the right mindset. Now, this is partially true, but really it's just to keep Kakarot separate from the group. He does know Kakarot's the second weakest among them, but he sees potential in Kakarot. And he feels like those other Saiyans might be holding him back, whether accidentally or purposefully. He's trying to plant these seeds in Kakarot's mind, trying to let him know that the other Saiyans don't really care for him. But under Frieza's wing, he'll do a lot better for himself. Kakarot doesn't know what Frieza's trying to gain out of this, but he accepts it. He doesn't really have a choice because it is Frieza after all, and he can grow stronger from this. He is right. The other Saiyans are holding him back. He could be growing a lot stronger if they actually let him shine. And Frieza's glad to hear this. Slowly, he's going to turn Kakarot against the others. Frieza couldn't do this with Vegeta or Nappa because they'd definitely turn against Zarbon and Dodoria, especially Vegeta because he has power that's almost close to them, and if he grows too strong, he's a big flight risk. As for Raditz, he doesn't show the same promise. But as for Kakarot, he's least likely to betray Frieza. He's the one that Frieza finds easiest to manipulate, and the one who has the most promise. This way Frieza will help Kakarot grow stronger, and then he can get rid of the other Saiyans, while also eliminating any threat that Kakarot poses by making him loyal to Frieza. At first, the other Saiyans don't really care that Kakarot's on another squad until they hear what squad he's with. He's with Zarbon and Dodoria of all people, and they're not stupid. That means Frieza had to directly appoint them to that group. He's not on some random squad with weak soldiers, he's with two of the strongest ones in Frieza's ranks. Frieza himself is involved, so they could pretty clearly tell Frieza has some sort of weird plan. He purposefully separated the Saiyans for some reason. They don't know exactly why, but they know there's a reason behind it. Maybe it is their fault though. If Kakarot were more loyal to them, this wouldn't have happened, and they'd rather have Kakarot as an ally than an enemy. Because whether intentional or not, this might turn Kakarot against them. But they're kind of in a tough spot. They need to retrieve Kakarot and get him to be part of their group again. But by doing so, they'd have to act directly against Frieza's orders. They'd have to attack Zarbon and Dodoria's group. Which actually won't be too big of an issue. They just have to get them in a secluded place and then turn Great Ape. And they wouldn't mind rebelling against Frieza. The issue is, once they do it, they can't go back. The three other Saiyans come to a consensus. They've always fought together, but never actually truly fought together. This time, for the first time ever probably, they're truly going to be working alongside each other. Working as an actual team for a common goal. They're going to retrieve Kakarot. This doesn't happen right away either. Kakarot's already been going on missions with Zarbon and Dodoria, and training with them too. Plus, the other Saiyans need to locate him in the first place. And Kakarot is seeing some exceptional growth here, which is exactly what Frieza wanted. Zarbon and Dodoria actually let him do things on missions. Before, Vegeta and Nappa wouldn't really let him do that. They'd always want to take the opportunity to shine, and they basically gave Kakarot and Raditz busy work, fighting random fodder instead of getting to real fights. But here, Kakarot's getting into real battles. He's doing real training with Zarbon and Dodoria. They're giving him actual guidance too, not because they want to, but because Frieza told them to. And he's growing exceptionally quick, especially with Zenkai's taken into account. And the Saiyans wait for their opportunity to strike. One day this trio is on a planet that's far away. Raditz has been trying to closely listen in, basically stalking them to figure out whatever missions they've been having. And now, it seems like they have their opportunity. After Zarbon's group sets out for that planet, the Saiyans leave not too long after, going to the same destination. They're in a remote area, far away from Frieza but not too far from another base, which is important for later. While Zarbon, Dodoria, and Kakarot are busy on their mission, the Saiyans arrive, first destroying two of the attack balls, leaving one behind for Kakarot. They doubt Zarbon and Dodoria will even be able to escape anyways because they're going to die here. But this is nice insurance. And they know Raditz won't do much in terms of power, so he's the one who throws the artificial moon in the air. Not too far away, Kakarot can see this. confused as to why that's there because he instantly recognizes what it is. He accidentally turns Grade Ape, which isn't bad because he's on a mission right now and this lets him easily destroy the targets that he's fighting. But Zarbon's confused. Did Kakarot throw up an artificial moon? And he says he didn't. He doesn't know what's going on. But over the horizon, they see 3 Great Apes flying over. Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz. In base, they had no shot at winning, and they wanted to have a surefire victory here. Sure, they do like fun battles, but in this specific circumstance, they need to fight and end it quickly. And as Great Apes, this is a pretty easy task. Zarbon and Dodoria are completely eliminated, with Kakarot thinking he's next. Why are the Saiyans here? And Vegeta tells Kakarot directly. He knows Kakarot's a fool, but he can't be that foolish. He has to know there's a reason Frieza separated them, right? And Kakarot does know, but honestly, he's been doing better here. He's grown so much stronger too. He flourishes without the Saiyans. Now, he doesn't necessarily hate them, but they have been holding him back. But he does recognize what Frieza's been trying to do. It's not like he really had a choice though. He had to go along with these two. But he could pretty quickly assume what the Saiyans are trying to do right now. They're trying to get him back by starting a revolt, right? They've been wanting to revolt against Frieza for a while, but that's always been a pipe dream for them. And Kakarot kinda chuckles. This means they're doing it solely to get him back, right? Now they see the value in him. So Nappa asks him what it's gonna be. Is he gonna join them, or is he gonna try to be Frieza's lapdog? And Kakarot says he will join them, but under one condition. The artificial moon dissipates and they all return to their normal forms. He wants Vegeta to fight him. If Vegeta wins, he'll join them. And Vegeta thinks this is ridiculous, but he goes for it anyways. The two begin fighting, and much to Vegeta's surprise, Kakarot actually does really well. Of course, Vegeta wins in the end, but he realized that Kakarot's far stronger than he thought. By now, he's even exceeded Nappa's power. And Kakarot basically just did this to prove a point. He knew he wouldn't win against Vegeta, but he wants him to see the true value of his strength. And he says fine, he'll join them, but he promises them. Soon enough, he'll be the strongest Saiyan of all of them. They'll stop looking down upon him. As someone who's always been looked down upon, he's finally going to prove himself. And what better opportunity than to fight against Frieza? Kakarot sticks out a hand, with Vegeta grabbing and shaking it. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, the Saiyans are actually showing some sort of camaraderie with each other. For once, they're acting like an actual team of sorts. This is where the fun truly begins for them. And they've done exactly what they wanted to. They've successfully retrieved Kakarot. The 4 of them leave this planet to head to another base. They need supplies first and then they'll head off on their own. Meanwhile, Frieza's waiting for some sort of contact from Zarbon. He hasn't heard from him, Dodoria, or Kakarot. And the mission they were on shouldn't have been too hard. That's why he only sent 3 of them. And he starts to wonder if something went on without him knowing. Out of curiosity, he checks to see where the Saiyans are. And he can't locate them either. No matter what he does, he can't get in contact with either group. And Frieza's able to put 2 and 2 together pretty easily. This is definitely all related, isn't it? Well, it just shows that he was right. He knew the Saiyans probably would have betrayed him all along. Although, he wonders what Kakarot's fate was. Knowing the Saiyans, they probably killed him. Maybe this was a perfect excuse for that. But Frieza needs to figure out what went on first, and he needs to locate the other Saiyans. Following the encounter with Zarbon and Dodoria, the Saiyans immediately leave for a less populated Frieza base. They're pretty much on the outskirts of his sphere of influence, which is good. This means they're going to be able to get some supplies from the space, but also they're going to be far from Frieza. So they're basically hitting the ground running. But once they get to this base, they don't cause alarm right away. And they try to keep a low profile too, so no one can report to Frieza that they're here. Not that they'd even be suspicious of the Saiyans just yet anyways. Covertly, they loot a bunch of supplies and other stuff, and try to keep a low profile. They also get rid of their attack balls and get an actual ship instead. One that has healing chambers because that's pretty important for them. Raditz and Nappa disable any sort of tracking device on there. And for now, they're going to have to stick close together because they probably can't use their scouters either. Even if they talk on local channels, it's still kind of a risk. So the group departs, pretty much unnoticed. But as mentioned at the end of the last episode, Frieza's already pretty suspicious about what's going on. He's not stupid. He arrives where Zarbon and Dodoria once were a few days later, seeing nothing's left behind except a few craters where it seems like a fight took place. Well, just as he expected. Of course they were here on a mission, but it was an easy mission, so he knows this planet's inhabitants weren't responsible for killing Zarbon and Dodoria. There had to be some sort of outside interference. And the only rational conclusion is that it was the Saiyans, because they disappeared around the same time that this happened. In a fit of anger, Frieza even blows up the planet that they're on, terrifying all the subordinates that are near him that are barely able to escape in the nick of time. He apologizes. He let his anger get to him. He was stupid for letting those Saiyans live in the first place. He should have known they would have tried this. Instead of being sneaky about it and trying to separate the group, he should have just killed them. Well, it's a shame he destroyed that planet. But he needed to vent his frustration somehow, and soon enough he'll be able to vent it right on the Saiyans themselves. And maybe for fun, he'll even go into his second form against them. Not that he would even need that, but he'll show them true terror. The Saiyans eventually do find an isolated planet to have a base on. The gravity here is actually higher than usual. Notably higher too. It's about 50 times where planet Vegeta's gravity was, which is 500 times Earth gravity. They struggle to even stand on this planet, but Kakarot says this is probably a good place to land. They'll be able to get incredibly strong here. They could leave for another planet, but this way, if they adapt to this gravity, imagine how much stronger they'll be. And they've fought on planets with higher gravity before, but never for a prolonged period of time, and never with gravity like this. At most, they've been on planets with like 3 times the gravity of planet Vegeta, so this is a pretty big jump. And this is perfect. They need to train as hard as possible, and Vegeta thinks they should abuse Zenkais, but Kakarot says it's not that simple. Zenkais will help, but they do need to have hard work too. He learned that while he was with the Zarbon's group because he experienced both. Sure, they can constantly injure each other and then heal, but at a certain point that'll have diminishing gains. Zenkais combined with actual training, that's what's really going to help them grow. This also does kind of anger Nappa a bit because it sounds like he's questioning Vegeta's judgment. He hasn't liked Kakarot's attitude one bit. This whole time he's been holding it back. But he's insulted that Kakarot's trying to call the shots. He's not the leader here. And the two of them begin arguing. This has been bubbling up for a while, so Raditz and Vegeta don't even intervene, especially because Vegeta wants to see the outcome of this battle. The arguing eventually leads to a fight, and Kakarot actually does beat Nappa, in an effort to prove that he knows what he's talking about. He's not trying to question Vegeta's judgment. He's just telling them the facts, and they're not going to get anywhere if they keep fighting. Whether they like it or not, they're going to have to work together, and they're not going to have to rely on one person's thoughts here. As far as they're concerned, low-class Saiyan, high-class Saiyan, mid-class Saiyan, it doesn't matter anymore. Right now they're all equal, and they need to act equal. If they put each other down, they're not going to get anywhere. The Saiyans of course have Great Ape too, but they need to be strong in base as well. Great Ape is awesome to have as a backup, but Frieza of course knows that he could just go for their tails and cut them off. So while they have that in their back pocket, they need to be able to work without Great Ape too, just in case. Also because if they don't end up fighting under a full moon, they're going to have to create an artificial one which will drain someone's power. So they really shouldn't be too reliant on that. And thus, they begin training. Right now, it's about age 755. In context of the actual series, we're pretty much a year before the 23rd World Tournament's supposed to happen. And don't worry, we'll probably cover Earth eventually in the story too, but for now we're going to ignore it, since this isn't a story about Earth. That's why by this point Kakarot has growth spurt, with Vegeta and Raditz also being fully grown by now. Earlier than Kakarot, of course. Let's also cover some power levels, at least for the time when they arrive on the planet. Vegeta's the strongest of the group at 15,000. He's marginally weaker than the Saiyan Saga Vegeta, just because that's a few years out still. You might think that maybe he should be stronger because he benefited from having an extra crew member, but remember, he barely even trained with Kakarot or even acknowledged him, so he's not going to benefit from Kakarot being there. Kakarot's actually the second strongest of the group, at a power of about 6,000. Hence why he was able to beat Nappa so easily, and actually did stand a chance against Vegeta, but didn't really do too much otherwise. Then there's Nappa at 3,000, pretty much for the same reason as Vegeta. Raditz, on the other hand, is pretty much about where he was in the actual Saiyan Saga. He's right around that level, and we'll say he's about 1,500. Difference is he actually did benefit from Kakarot training with him a bit, although it wasn't too huge of a benefit because they started very late and they didn't really do that too much anyways. But I could still see somewhat of a boost for him. Following Frieza's discovery of what happened to Zarbon and Dodoria, he sends out a bunch of scouts, and he even contemplates maybe using the Ginyu Force. If they were able to kill Zarbon and Dodoria, they should probably be able to kill most of the Frieza Force soldiers. Of course, if he sends dozens of them at once, that's going to be a big issue, but he does know they could turn Great Ape, and the soldiers might not be able to go for their tails. Plus, in all honesty, he's not sure if regular scouts will be able to find them. The Ginyu Force is an elite group after all, and they'd probably be better at finding the Saiyans in the first place. So, not too long after Frieza sends all the other scouts out, instead contacting the Ginyu Force, exclusively sending them to find the Saiyans. And he gives them a pretty good paycheck for it too. It's their first big job in a while, and Ginyu's pretty excited. They're not going to let Frieza down. Thankfully, the Saiyans are pretty good at covering their tracks, so it takes a few months before anyone is able to find them. This is more than enough time for them to get acclimated to this planet's gravity, and train up in general. They have pretty rapid growth at first while they're getting adjusted, but of course at some point this planet's gravity just becomes normal to them, so it's not really going to gain anything after that. But they still have their normal training, of course. The biggest thing the Saiyans learned from this is actually fighting together. Of course they fought together before, but they never truly synergized. Which is good because they're about to fight another group with a lot of synergy. The Ginyu Force is eventually able to find the planet, arriving and being noticed pretty much instantly. The Saiyans aren't using their scouters, but they've learned to sense ki basically by force. Since they couldn't rely on scouters anymore, instinctively they tried finding other ways to track each other. Kakarot accidentally stumbled upon this, and now all four of them have the ability to sense ki, which also gives them a greater control in their powers too. They could lower their presence. The Ginyu Force did locate their presence at first, but now they lower it back down, getting ready to ambush the group because they can instantly tell it's the Ginyu Force. It's 5 huge power levels gathered together, so there's not really too many other options of what it can be. Ginyu tells the group to split up. Jace and Bardock go out looking on their own, Recoome goes out on his own, Golda goes out on his own, and Ginyu goes out on his own. Golda's unfortunate because he stumbles upon Vegeta, and he doesn't even realize it, so he can't even activate his time stop. By the time he realizes Vegeta's there, he's dead, which is good because the group doesn't realize how big of a problem he truly could have been. But this alerts Ginyu, who goes right for Vegeta. Jace and Bardock then get jumped by Kakarot and Raditz, with Nappa jumping Recoome. Their ambush was successful. 3 separate fights break out. The first one to fall is Recoome, who also defeats Nappa at the same time. Nappa's left pretty badly injured from it too. But Kakarot and Raditz arrive, finishing Recoome off and killing him. They won their battle with Jace and Bardock, and Nappa says to leave him behind. They need to go help Vegeta because he's probably got his hands full with Ginyu. The two fly over to Vegeta. And pretty much the second they get there, they watch as Ginyu swaps bodies with Vegeta. This will probably be pretty nice for actually boosting Vegeta's power too. All he has to do is sit back and watch, and then they're going to heal him. And by the time Ginyu stole his body, it was already a little bit injured. They had their own fight beforehand. Plus, Ginyu doesn't have the full power of Vegeta's body, which works in the favor of Kakarot and Raditz. Amidst this battle, Ginyu is actually able to defeat Raditz too, but not kill him because he still has to deal with Kakarot. And the fight against Kakarot's pretty tough. He's surprised to see Kakarot's that strong. He's got to be right below Vegeta in terms of power by now. Ginyu then feels something pierce through his chest. A laser. Kakarot's holding one finger out, with a powerful beam launched from it. Kakarot was able to pick up on this while he was with Zarbon Dodoria, and briefly with Frieza. It's a pretty handy technique, and he can't wait to kill Frieza with his own ability. But Ginyu still has one last resort. He tries to swap bodies with Kakarot, which is exactly what Kakarot wanted. Quickly, using all of his power, he tries using telekinesis to pull Vegeta towards him. And just in the nick of time, he's able to swap him back into his original body. It looks like the plan worked out perfectly. Raditz weakly gets up and walks over to Ginyu, who's on his last legs, with Kakarot walking over too. The two each hold a hand out in front of them, launching a simultaneous blast that destroys the rest of Ginyu. They collapse to the ground, exhausted. They barely made it through that, and this is pretty bad because this means Frieza's definitely found them by now. What they could theorize is that the Ginyu Force was sent out specifically to find them. It doesn't seem like anyone else is here with them, so that seems to be the most likely case. But this info was definitely related to Frieza, especially because they had their scouters on the entire time. They would love to taunt Frieza over the scouters, but the scouters got destroyed mid-battle. But they know their time is limited now. At most, they have a few weeks until Frieza shows up, most likely only a few days. It really depends on where he is at the moment, and they definitely need to plan for the worst case scenario. First things first, they have to heal up at least. They all got pretty bad beatings, and Vegeta's probably the worst off of all of them, since Kakarot nearly needed to kill his body to kill Ginyu. Kakarot's actually probably the best off of all of them, but that's not really saying much either. If he didn't have Raditz to help him against Ginyu at first, he probably couldn't have battled for that long. But Nappa finds joy in this. This pain from this battle, it's only going to help them grow stronger. Especially with injuries like these, imagine how strong they'll be after they heal up. It's a shame they can't read power levels anymore to quantify their strength, but at the very least they could sense ki and realize how much stronger they've grown that way. But Nappa would really love to compare his number to other people. The 4 Saiyans all take time healing up, which thankfully doesn't take too long. And now, it's a waiting game. Raditz asks Vegeta what he thinks. He pretty much is still the leader of the group after all, even though they're working together now. He simply has one order. Their next goal is to kill Frieza, and they'll wait however long it takes for him to get here. In the meantime, no training. They don't want to be caught in the middle of a training session. They need to be at full stamina and be prepared no matter what. But Vegeta also says something that he's never really said to them before. He tells them good work. The way they fought against the Ginyu Force, it was amazing. And he thinks to himself, he never truly saw the potential in these 3 Saiyans, even Nappa, who's still higher class than the other 2. But now he could truly see what they're capable of. He could see what Kakarot was talking about. Working together like this, they're stronger than ever. When they're all working hard together, when they're not separated by class. It's no coincidence that this is the strongest they've ever been, the most skilled they've ever been. This is their peak, and eventually, they might be able to become Super Saiyans at this rate, especially with the growth they're experiencing right now. To think they defeated the Ginyu Force, while outnumbered no less. As Frieza draws closer and closer to the planet, let's cover some of their power levels. After all the training, and after the battle with the Ginyu Force, Vegeta of course has a huge boost in power, and he's still the strongest of the group at 3 million. Kakarot's still second place, at about 1 million now. He didn't get as huge of a boost as Vegeta did, or even Nappa in comparison, because Nappa got a pretty nice boost after the fight with the Ginyu Force. He's still behind Kakarot at 700k, but it's still a huge boost nonetheless. And then Raditz is behind all of them at 500k, which makes him the weakest of the group, but consider the fact that we're still way before the Saiyan Saga, and everyone is dozens of times stronger than Vegeta was at that point. Even stronger than Grade 8 Vegeta. But will this be truly enough to fight against Frieza? They're not going to know for sure until he gets here. And after a few days, he does get there. The second the Saiyans are found, Frieza made it his priority to get there as soon as possible, instantly setting out a course for this planet. Of course, first they're faced with a bunch of Frieza Force soldiers, but they defeat those soldiers pretty easily. Frieza was hoping those soldiers would do more, but he didn't realize the Saiyans were that strong. At the very least, he hoped it would tire them out, but no, it didn't even do that. So much to his disdain, it looks like Frieza himself is going to have to step in. As he steps off his ship, making eye contact with the Saiyans, he tells them long time no see. To think they were able to defeat not only Zarbon and Dodoria, but the Ginyu Force too. It's truly amazing. He should have known Saiyans had this potential, the potential to grow this powerful. And he regrets not killing them all before. It was a really big mistake, but he's going to learn from that mistake. Here, he's going to kill them, and he's going to enjoy it too. And this time, he's not going to let them slip away either. They're strong, but they're not going to be strong enough to defeat him, especially because they've never seen his true power. Frieza powers up and shows the true strength of his first form, with the 4 Saiyans all assuming a battle stance, ready for a fight. After displaying the full power of his first form, Frieza launches in. The fight begins. But much to Frieza's surprise, in his first form, he's absolutely demolished. He can't even keep up with one of them. Even Raditz individually could keep up with him pretty closely, with Frieza only being slightly above him. And the other 3, they're stronger than his first form individually,
But right now they're all fighting together, so they're not even at full power. Frieza checks his scouter, still in disbelief. And it shows that collectively the four of them only slightly outmatch his first form. Okay, just like he thought. They're a lot stronger than expected, but he could defeat them by transforming easily. Of course, what he doesn't realize is that they're not at full power right now. They're trying to conserve energy. And this is only a fraction of their strength. Frieza goes into his second form, so they show off more power too. They're surprised to see this transformation and hear that he actually has more. But it's not really too big of a deal for them. They still feel confident here. As for Frieza though, he's absolutely confused. He didn't know the Saiyans would be this strong, especially the low-class ones. And seeing that they were able to grow in power when he transformed, he decides he's not going to hold back anymore. Maybe he shouldn't underestimate them, as much as he'd love to. He completely skips his third form, going right into his final form. He doesn't have time to charge into his full power right away, but his current level should be more than enough. He commends them for making him go this far in general, but this is the last thing that they'll be able to see. They should take solace in the fact that they were able to actually see this form. They're pretty much the only ones to ever fight him in this form. And now, this match is actually getting a little bit more even. Actually, going more into Frieza's favor now. By the time he's showing off 50% of his full strength, that's of course going to give the Saiyans trouble. But they actually do have one thing working in their favor, and it's out of pure coincidence. All at once, the four Saiyans leave the fight, rocketing away towards the other side of the planet. Frieza of course chases them, wondering why they're running. It's already too late for that. But they're not retreating. They're going somewhere, basically leading Frieza into an ambush. They arrive on the complete opposite side of the planet. This was completely unintentional, but when they found this planet, they did see that it had a moon, giving off a pretty good amount of Blitz waves too. Even when it's not full, they get more than enough radiation. The moon is in full view. The four rocket up into the atmosphere, trying to absorb as many Blitz waves as possible, getting as close to the moon as they can to make sure that they get everything they can get. And by the time Frieza is near them, it's already too late. 4 Great Apes fall down from the sky, landing on Frieza. Of course they have artificial moons, but they didn't want to use that just yet, especially when they have a perfectly good moon right here. This boost in power actually really does help them out, although it's still not as much as they really need here. Even with all of their power combined, Frieza's 50% is still slightly stronger than their collective strength as Great Apes. But this is fun for him too. This will make him feel even better, beating the Saiyans at their peak, 4 of them at once too, and he's not even using his full power. Frieza has the upper hand in this battle, although he does get bored of fighting the Great Apes, and he wants to see the look on their faces when he kills them. Plus, he might as well make it easier on himself. He could just cut off their tails, but the easiest thing to do is just simply blow up the moon. Frieza lets out a huge shockwave of power, blowing the Great Apes away from him. He smirks as he points a finger into the sky, launching a beam from it so powerful that it instantly blows up the moon. The sky is darker without the moon's reflected light, illuminated with fiery meteors showering down on the planet, making it look almost apocalyptic. The Saiyans all de-transform, going back into their base. Frieza says it's been fun testing out his power, but he's pretty much done here. He doesn't want to waste any more time or effort, especially because they proved that they can't really do anything against him. Once again, he does commend them though. They made it this far. They are quite strong after all, just not really on his level. It's too bad they're fighting the Emperor, the strongest person in the universe. Nappa's the first one to try and attack Frieza again. Frieza lifts up the same finger that he destroyed the moon with, and pretty casually launches a beam right through Nappa's chest, then pointing a finger at Kakarot. The moment the beam's about to hit Kakarot, Raditz tackles his brother out of the way, taking the full force of the beam as it goes through him instead. Vegeta's able to get in close and tries fighting Frieza, but he effortlessly dodges all of Vegeta's attacks. Kakarot doesn't even try to attack. He tries to see if Raditz and Nappa are still alive, and barely they are. As Frieza's casually dodging all of Vegeta's attacks, the other 3 Saiyans catch his eye, and he realizes that he didn't finish the job. He chuckles and says he'll get it right this time, whipping Vegeta away with his tail, then lifting up a finger in each hand, launching another death beam from each finger. Kakarot jumps out of the way just in the nick of time, but Frieza only launches 2 beams, aimed more decisively this time around, hitting Raditz and Nappa right in the head. That should do the job. Vegeta struggles to get back up after taking that attack, with Kakarot realizing it's just him and Vegeta left. Raditz and Nappa, they're actually dead. And they died so easily too. And it's not because they're weak, it's just because Frieza's strong. Way too strong. All the hard work that Kakarot did, it was for nothing. They're still not going to win here. But even if the odds are against him, Kakarot's not giving up just yet. He still has fight left in him. The ground starts shaking around him, with his aura flaring up, this time changing into a golden color. But that's it. Kakarot's rage fuels him as he launches in towards Frieza, gaining a huge boost in speed and power. Although, it's not a massive boost. Frieza's taken aback at first. He's actually taking some damage from Kakarot's attacks. Whatever power he's using right now is clearly stronger than his Great Ape form, and Frieza's surprised that they even had any more power left in them. But Kakarot tells Frieza no matter what, they're going to win here. He won't accept Raditz and Nappa's death either, especially after Raditz even saved him, something he could have never expected. The Saiyans were never close to each other, at least not until very recently, and even then, they're barely friends, basically just allies at most. But that act from Raditz, sacrificing himself to save Kakarot, that's the first truly brotherly thing he's ever done. It's the first time he's ever seen anything like that from a Saiyan in general. The only time he's ever actually seen a Saiyan do something like that is, well, when his parents saved him, back as a kid. Despite never getting to see much of the Saiyans on planet Vegeta, he knows that what happened just now, that's un-Saiyan-like. Everything they've been doing so far is extraordinary, never before seen from the Saiyans. And it reminds Kakarot, they're not just stuck as being meathead brutes. They could be more than that. They could be valiant warriors like this. The anger at the death of Raditz and Nappa, as well as the determination to win, that's what's fueling Kakarot here, giving him a brief boost in power. Vegeta stumbles as he stands up, still feeling awe from taking that attack from Frieza. Just a single tail whip was able to do the stand, and it makes him wonder if what he's seeing is actually real. Kakarot's doing pretty well against Frieza, and it makes Vegeta wonder what kind of power that is, that golden aura surrounding him. Is he a Super Saiyan? No, it can't be. But he has no other explanation for what this is. Little does Vegeta know though, this isn't Super Saiyan. Sure, Kakarot's getting some sort of a boost. This is a false Super Saiyan of sorts, but not the true form. But even if Kakarot did have the real Super Saiyan form here, it still wouldn't be enough. This boost in power only temporarily distracts Frieza. It looks like Kakarot didn't have a big enough push yet to actually get that power. And with one serious attack, Frieza's able to land a direct hit on Kakarot, delivering enough power in this attack to knock him unconscious. It does make Frieza wonder what that power was, and if it is a Super Saiyan, that makes him even happier. Not only is he killing the Saiyans, but he made a Super Saiyan appear, and he defeated a Super Saiyan easily. He had nothing to worry about this entire time. It makes him laugh, pretty much uncontrollably, maniacally too. Once more he lifts his finger up, ready to kill Kakarot, with Vegeta still watching on, trying to regain his composure. He flies back in to try and fight Frieza. Frieza of course just continues dodging him again, surprised that Vegeta's still alive. But just like Kakarot, Vegeta has determination carrying him. Also, rage, just as much as Kakarot's feeling. Even though he might have not shown it before, Vegeta knows that somewhere deep down he has cared for the Saiyans at least somewhat his whole life, even if it was very minutely. And not this specific group of Saiyans, but the Saiyans in general. That too, it's part of his whole pride as a Saiyan. He's the prince. Not only is he watching his comrades die here, he's watching the entire Saiyan race die, the remainder of it, whatever little's left of it. And it angers him to no end. But even more than that, he needs to prove himself. He needs to show that he's still the strongest Saiyan. He's the prince. It's his duty to do that. If Kakarot can get a boost in power like that, he can too. He'll defeat Frieza. His whole life, he's wanted to do that. He's not going to die here. As one of the two Saiyans left, he's not going to let either of them die here. It's out of pride for his race, determination to win, and out of anger for everything that's happened so far. That's what's fueling him right now. The emotions he's feeling are even more intense than what Kakarot felt. And something snaps within Vegeta. His power skyrockets, and for a brief moment, he becomes something unexpected. In an outburst of rage, he attacks Frieza, with Frieza completely dumbfounded at what he's seeing. Vegeta's hair's turned completely golden. His eyes have changed color. He has that same aura that Kakarot had. But his power is so much more intense. Frieza can't even sense it, but he can just feel it. The pressure from that aura. Briefly, and without even realizing it, Vegeta has turned into a Super Saiyan. A true Super Saiyan. Blinded by his rage, it fuels him to keep fighting, even though he barely has any stamina left. With the sheer amount of power he's showing off, he completely stuns Frieza, hitting him with a rapid flurry of attacks. Frieza's launched far into the atmosphere, with Vegeta charging a Gallic gun, the strongest one he's ever done yet. The purple beam of light darts across the sky, making direct contact with Frieza, once and for all, defeating the Emperor, launching him far into space. Vegeta obviously would have loved to savor that more, but in the moment the power intoxicated him, the rage intoxicated him, plus the desire to just kill Frieza right then and there. He didn't know if this power was fleeting, he didn't even know what it was, and due to his lack of energy at the moment, he even drops out of the form. He looks over at the rest of the group. Raditz and Nappa are there lifeless, with Kakarot there on the ground unconscious, but thankfully still alive. Whatever happened just now, that must have been what Vegeta was theorizing. Kakarot didn't become a Super Saiyan, Vegeta did. Just like he wanted. It's only natural. He's the prince after all, an elite warrior. And while the four of them did put class aside, Vegeta thinks it has to do with him being an elite class warrior, and that's why Kakarot couldn't do it. He's low class. He just simply couldn't pull it off. But still, it's amazing that he got a semblance of that power. Of course, what Vegeta doesn't know is that both of them are capable of doing this. Kakarot just needed a little bit more of a push. And it does make Vegeta wonder if it's possible. Especially because they're not done yet. Sure, they defeated Frieza, but King Cold's still out there somewhere, and now they have half the amount of people. Kakarot's not even conscious right now. He still doesn't even know what happened. Vegeta's glad that he was able to defeat Frieza, especially with him being the one to deliver the final blow. But in the end, they still did have a loss. It wasn't a flawless victory. And they should probably leave this planet as quickly as possible. He buries Raditz and Nappa, showing uncharacteristic respect for them. If this Vegeta were any different, normally he wouldn't even think of doing this. He probably would just laugh at their death, saying they were weak and they deserved it. But here, he's showing respect for their efforts, respect for them being his comrades. Kakarot's also placed in a healing pod on the ship, as Vegeta sets a course for a new planet. Kakarot eventually does wake up and fully heals. Learning of how the fight ended, glad that Vegeta was able to win there. Kakarot still doesn't know what power overcame him, but he wonders if he can unlock the same power that Vegeta did, the true Super Saiyan form. Although, he still can't help but regret the death of Nappa and Raditz. But Vegeta says it might not be a total loss. He has heard rumors out there, although they're just rumors. But somewhere in the universe there's apparently some sort of wish-granting orb, or maybe multiple wish-granting orbs. He doesn't know for sure, but it makes him wonder if they'd ever be able to bring anyone back. He kinda wants to pursue that, and if they do exist, well, they'll just take them for whatever planet they find them on. Remember too, while they are the protagonists of the story, the Saiyans are still not good people. If these wish-granting orbs do exist out there, Vegeta and Kakarot will just take them from whatever planet they're on. Of course, they're not as cold-hearted as normal Saiyans now, but it's not like they're pure good superheroes either. But whatever the case may be, they're gonna go and find them, if they even do exist, that is. But first, they need to figure out where to go next in general. Not only in that search for wish orbs, but just what their next step is in life. Especially because soon enough, King Cold will probably find them. Of course, King Cold does eventually come by the planet where the fight took place on. And out in space, he finds something really interesting. He finds Frieza. He's mangled, but he's still alive. Only just barely though. He's just been floating aimlessly out in space, with no power to even move around. But King Cold's not too worried. Thankfully his body's relatively still intact. Frieza's badly injured, a lot of his injuries are internal. But simply placing him in the healing pod, that'll be enough to heal him up. They won't even need to put mechanical parts in him like Mecha Frieza. Immediately, King Cold takes Frieza in on the ship, and he starts his healing process. With King Cold wondering who could have possibly done this. He knew Frieza was doing something about the Saiyan, so maybe it's related to that. But he'll have to wait for Frieza to wake up before he actually finds out. While the two Saiyans do want to pursue the wish orbs, they obviously have no idea of where to even go for them. And that's if they exist. It's just rumors. They don't even know the true name of them because they're calling them wish orbs and not Dragon Balls. But Vegeta does have a few theories. So he thinks that if they're related to magic somehow, maybe a magical species would have them. And the only one that comes to mind naturally would be the Namekians. So for all they know, if they exist, they would be on Namek, so they might as well go and search for them there. Vegeta and Kakarot set out for Namek. This is still a long shot, but at least worth a try. Of course, the second they arrive on the planet, Namek is on alert. Usually they're not the fighting type anyways, but they see that they're dressed like the Frieza Force, and they can tell that these two are Saiyans. Usually that's a bad sign. But Vegeta talks to some of the locals and tells them why they're here. It's pretty simple. They're looking for wish orbs. They just want to revive two of their allies, and that's it. They have no desire to fight here. Although if they do need to fight, they would win. But obviously the Namekians aren't going to give up the Dragon Balls that easily. Even if they say that's the wish they want to make, first of all, they can't really verify it, and second of all, it's not like they would give the Dragon Balls to Saiyans, especially if they're working under Frieza. Well, not anymore. Vegeta mentions that Frieza's been dealt with by them. But still, the Saiyans aren't necessarily good people. It would be kinda naive to just hand over Dragon Balls to some Saiyans. But of course, the Namekians don't even mention the Dragon Balls. They pretend that they don't exist. Now, Vegeta probably would realize that they're lying, but they could be telling the truth. Surprisingly enough, Vegeta decides to leave. And Kakarot wonders why. The Namekians are probably just lying to them. They could just take the Dragon Balls. But that's not going to work. First of all, they don't want to just needlessly slaughter everyone here. Sure, maybe the old Saiyans would like to, but now it's kind of worthless. Especially because if they did that, first of all, they could accidentally destroy the Dragon Balls in the process. Which is exactly right, because if they kill the wrong Namekian, it could mean they go dormant. Plus, if the Namekians aren't willing to help, they're not going to be able to use the wish orbs. If the wish orbs are real, Vegeta and Kakarot don't know how they work. Vegeta would assume there's some sort of ritual involved. And there's two big issues with that. One, they'd have to find that out from the Namekians first, and the Namekians obviously wouldn't tell them. Even if they got the Dragon Balls by force, first of all, they'd have to kill the Namekians in the process, which would mean that no one would be able to give them the info. And if they left the Namekians alive, they wouldn't tell the Saiyans regardless. Plus, on top of that, Vegeta did briefly hear them speaking a different language. They were speaking Namekian. Not only do they not know the ritual, they don't know the language. And if there's some sort of incantation attached to it, Vegeta realized that they'd probably be screwed because they don't know how to speak Namekian. They'd have to have one of the Namekians willingly working with them, which obviously is not going to happen regardless. But they'll come back eventually, and this is the best way to do it. Maybe they could try again in the future, and try to convince the Namekians some other way. But for now, Vegeta thinks it's best not to waste their time here. They could look on other planets. They have no confirmation of the wish orbs existing, and they have no clue of how they work if they do exist. But based on that reaction from the Namekians, they probably do exist. They'd have to find some way to convince the Namekians, though. Taking them by force is not going to work. So, they leave Namek, wondering what their next move is still. Well, in the meantime, they can at least train. Vegeta still has to get a better control on Super Saiyan. Of course, he can use it at will, but it's not really too efficient right now. Plus, it takes a lot of effort to tap into at the moment. He only barely was able to use it against Frieza, so he's going to have to work more on it. And as for Kakarot, he can't tap into False Super Saiyan at will. But Vegeta thinks there's two outcomes here. One, False Super Saiyan is actually a form that's exclusive to a low-class Saiyan like Kakarot. Or two, it's an omen of sorts, an omen for the true Super Saiyan form like Vegeta's. Although he's not sure if a low-class Saiyan could unlock that, but he'd at least like to work with Kakarot towards that. Besides, it's better to have a training partner that's around his level.
And imagine if the two of them had Super Saiyan, they'd be utterly unstoppable.
Of course, their biggest threat right now is King Cold. Now, they don't know the true extent of his power because they've rarely seen him in action, if at all. But they assume his power has to be somewhat around Frieza's. Maybe he has other forms beyond that too, which would be a pretty big issue if that's the case. Thankfully for them, that's not actually the case here, but his power actually is around where Frieza's is. But they're going to prepare for the worst. Even against Frieza, they thought they might be prepared, but he still attacked early and they didn't really want to fight just then. And that was a huge challenge. They barely won there. So, with King Cold, they can't be too safe. And it seems like for now, they're not going to be able to revive Nappa and Raditz, unfortunately. But if they get the Dragon Balls, that's all they want to do. They just want to revive the other two Saiyans. Bringing the other Saiyans back is pretty much a lost cause for them, especially without a planet for them to go on. Plus, the Dragon Balls wouldn't even be able to do that, because it's a large group of people that's been dead for many years. Most Dragon Ball sets won't be able to do that at all, but at least with Raditz and Nappa, the Dragon Balls should be able to revive them. Well, presumably. But in terms of the other Saiyans, there's not really a point to bring them back now. It's already been so long. They've been dead for nearly 2 decades, and there's no point to drag them back to life. And he doesn't even realize that it's impossible to do. But no point mulling on that right now. Frieza's defeat sends echoes throughout the entire universe. With the Emperor defeated, a lot of other people are going to be hearing about those rumors. One other group of space criminals actually does hear about this. The Heaters. They realize that without Frieza around, there's a power vacuum. They could take control of that, and it'll be great. This is exactly what they wanted. But there still is one issue. King Cold's around. Now, obviously, Frieza is still alive, but nobody knows that. As for King Cold, though, obviously there's no reason to think that he's dead, and he still is around and active. Just dormant for now, for some reason, and no one really knows why. But the Heaters realize that he's going to be an issue. Plus, whoever was the one to defeat Frieza in the first place, that could also be an issue as well, because clearly someone was working against him. Although, everyone hates Frieza. But if there's someone specifically fighting against him, that could be a big threat. Although, thankfully, the Heaters have some great resources for info. Mainly in the Frieza Force, because some of them are still around, which is the whole reason King Cold still has the resources to bring Frieza back in the first place. However, the fact that Frieza's alive is kept pretty much under wraps. Nobody knows because King Cold can't let this info leak. However, one rumor that spreads around pretty much uninhibited is the rumor regarding who defeated Frieza. The Heaters hear that apparently Frieza was defeated by Saiyans of all people. Well, they guess that makes sense. And Alec wants to find these two Saiyans, and they might have the perfect person for that. One of their underlings, Granolah, comes to them one day, doing one of his normal jobs, and the Heaters just casually mention Frieza's death. Of course, Granolah knows about this, and he's pretty happy about it too. But then he hears something even more interesting. The Heaters subtly mention the Saiyans to each other, and Granolah obviously picks up on this, just as they wanted. They explain to him that it's unconfirmed as of now, but apparently some Saiyans are responsible for defeating him. And just to rile him up even more, they say the Saiyans are aiming to take over the Frieza Force as is. They'll probably defeat King Cold next and then take the Force for themselves. This is huge news to Granolah. He didn't even consider the fact that King Cold's still alive, but more importantly, the fact that Saiyans were the ones to defeat Frieza. There's Saiyans out there still, and they're that strong? Not to mention, they're going to take over the Frieza Force. They'll just replace Frieza. Frieza might be dead, but it doesn't matter if there's going to be Saiyans in his place. That's actually worse in Granolah's eyes. He barely contains his rage, but he thanks them for the info, as he returns to Planet Cereal, and Alec's pretty content. This is exactly how they wanted it to go, and he could tell that Granolah's going to try and do something rash and probably find the Saiyans for himself to try and defeat them. Now, they could go search for the Saiyans themselves, although at the moment they're not too sure if they could defeat the Saiyans. And on top of that, having Granolah absent is great. This will remove that thorn from their side, and they could observe Granolah. They remember that encounter with that one Saiyan a while ago. There was a Namekian on that planet, and he's probably still there with the Wish Orbs if they do exist. Granolah will lead them right to the Wish Orbs, then he'll leave Planet Cereal, and they can get the Wish Orbs for themselves. Although, one thing does stick in their mind, specifically for Gas, remembering that Saiyan that he fought a while ago. Not too long before the destruction of Planet Vegeta, Bardock was on Planet Cereal and fought the Heaters like normal. Even though we're using Z Bardock's design here, we could still fit in the events with Super Bardock. So, all of that still happens. Gas doubts this is true, but somewhere deep in his mind he wonders if this is related to that Saiyan at all. If there's a Saiyan out there that's that strong enough to defeat Frieza. What if it is related? Probably not, but the possibility is there. Once Granolah gets back to Cereal, he immediately goes for the Dragon Balls and wishes for more power. Right now in Universe 7, there's not anyone that's crazy strong. At least in terms of mortals. We'll cover Earth later, but there's no one really strong there. Frieza's dead and the strongest people left are King Cold and Vegeta. Although, unbeknownst to everyone else, there is one more Saiyan out there that nobody knows of, who has a great amount of potential, but hasn't fully harnessed his power. So really, it's just those three that set the ceiling for the power in this universe right now. So when Granolah makes this wish, he becomes the strongest in the universe, but at this point in the story, this places him well beyond the Super Saiyan, and even where Frieza was at his full power. And since he's only facing other mortals, Taranbo doesn't even need to take anything off his life. The only reason Taranbo had that condition is because who he was trying to surpass. In the actual Granolah arc, Tarambo says he's able to make Granolah stronger but not beyond his latent potential. His latent potential would probably be enough to become strong here without losing any of his life. Essentially, he's getting his potential unlocked kind of like Piccolo did, giving Granolah his own ultimate form unknowingly. And with the wish being different, we'll introduce another change here. Since he's unlocking Granolah's potential as is instead of compressing his entire life for that, this awakens something strange within Granolah. His ultimate form is his double red-eyed form. Other than that, he has no sort of physical changes. This should be more than enough to defeat the Saiyans, so Granolah sets out on his hunt for the Saiyans. It's a little bit tough, but he's able to get some leads. He might even be able to ask Tarambo again because it doesn't seem like his recharge period is too long in the manga. So he just waits a little bit, and once Tarambo's back, he could just ask for the info. Although he does have to search for the Dragon Balls again, which does take a little bit of time. Monaido's concerned, but he could tell he can't stop Granolah now. With the amount of time Granolah needs to actually find the Dragon Balls here, let's say a few months have passed, especially since he needed to do that twice. He goes to hunt down the Saiyans, eventually finding a planet that they're on. There's just two of them, Kakarot and Vegeta. He asks for all the info on the Saiyans that he can get, so not only did Tarambo give him the location of their temporary base, but he knows all of their powers, and he knows which one's the strongest. Vegeta is. He's apparently a Super Saiyan, some sort of fabled legend. Not that he's concerned though. With his current power, he'll be able to defeat them pretty easily. Kakarot and Vegeta are on their base right now. It is temporary, so it's not really a base, but they did find a planet to actually set up on. This is basically where they're living for the time being. The two of them are just sitting around eating, killing time. Two beams of light then dart across the sky. Vegeta's barely able to dodge in time, but one of them hits Kakarot directly. It's a sniper shot. Someone's watching them, and it was aimed at their vital points. Thankfully, Kakarot was able to briefly move, so it didn't just incapacitate him immediately, but he still did take a good amount of damage. And without hesitation, the two of them rush over to wherever that sniper shot came from, just in the general direction at least. More sniper shots come at them and they try their best to dodge it. With Vegeta then powering up into Super Saiyan, flying over as fast as he can, this makes it a lot easier to dodge those attacks. But still, it's not effortless to dodge them. It's just his speed helping out. These shots are so precise too. And, just as important, they're powerful. And they eventually find the culprit, with Granolah standing there, ready to face them. They have no clue of who Granolah is, but Granolah knows who they are. And he points at Vegeta first, the prince. He'll pay for what the Saiyans did to Planet Cereal. Planet Cereal? He feels like he has to know that from somewhere, but can't really put his finger on why. What do the Cerealians have to do with the Saiyans? Vegeta says he's sorry to burst his bubble, but he has no clue of who Granolah is. And he was never on any Planet Cereal. It doesn't matter though. Granolah knows what their goal is now. Plus, being a commander of the Saiyans is more than enough for him to kill Vegeta. Their relation to Frieza, their relation to the Saiyan army that killed all the Cerealians. It's more than enough justification for Granolah. Although amidst his rage, Granolah accidentally lets one thing slip. He didn't mean to say this, but he mentions that a dragon gave him unstoppable power, so they won't be able to win here. A dragon gave him that power? Vegeta doesn't question it any further, but this does make him realize something. Granolah must have wished for this power. Some sort of dragon granted him it? That sounds a lot like the Namekian wish orbs that he was thinking of. Although he can't really confirm since he barely knows anything about them, but it's something to keep in mind. The two Saiyans prepare for battle, with Kakarot even surprisingly powering up. Granolah's other eye turns red, and an aura flares up around him, and as he looks at Kakarot he can see that his vitals are changing, and his power's changing too. Kakarot only just very recently unlocked this, but he's going to definitely be able to use it here, as he turns Super Saiyan. So, there's two Super Saiyans. Kakarot must have unlocked this right after Granolah got all that info from Tarambo. No matter though, one Super Saiyan or two, Granolah will be able to defeat them here. And as that fight begins, out in space, Frieza finally heals. His damage actually wasn't as severe, and he doesn't even need all those mechanical parts. There's no Mecha Frieza, it's just Frieza. And obviously he wants revenge against the Saiyans, and gives King Cold all the info that he has. They're gonna go find those Saiyans to stop them once and for all. The Heaters are making their move on Planet Cereal. Frieza's making his move on the Saiyans. And all the while, Granolah, Vegeta, and Kakarot are completely oblivious to all of this, caught up in their own fight thanks to misinformation from the Heaters. Against Granolah, the Saiyans are actually able to do decently well, but it's still not really enough. They do have a lot of power, but it's really just enough to hold them off, especially with the fact that Kakarot's already a bit injured because of the sneak attack. So they're going to need a lot more than just holding Granolah off. This guy's clearly out for blood, and they still don't really know why. But Kakarot does have an idea. Now, he knows Vegeta's not going to like this because it's kind of un-Saiyan-like, but it's their only shot at surviving, their only shot at winning, and it's a chance to revive Raditz and Nappa. He tells Vegeta they're going to need to retreat. Yeah, he doesn't really like that, but Kakarot must have a good reason for that, because usually he wouldn't suggest something like that. But he's being pretty tactical here and does have a good idea in mind. He'll tell Vegeta in a bit. The two of them combine all their power, no longer controlling their ki either. Not that this will injure Granolah anymore, but it's going to allow them to escape pretty easily. Together, the two of them launch a powerful blast at Granolah. It doesn't do much damage to him, but it rips off a chunk of the planet with Granolah on it. This is why they stopped using ki control. They easily were able to rip off this part of the planet, launching it far into space with Granolah still on it. At fast speeds too, they only have a brief chance now.
They make a beeline for their ship and immediately start flying to the other side of the planet. And once they arrive on the other side of the planet, they then launch off from there. This way it buys them time as Granolah tries to get back on the planet, and on top of that, launching off from the other side of the planet means that Granolah doesn't see where they're going. And by the time Granolah even notices they're gone, it's already too late. He doesn't know what direction they launched off in, so he just has to assume. Eventually he does make it back down on the planet just fine. That piece of the planet they launched off, it did fly off pretty quickly, giving them a good amount of distance. But still, it only bought them just a minute, but that was more than enough time. Granolah recollects himself, calling them cowards for escaping, but he'll find them again. It's only a matter of time, and now he knows more about them by just fighting them a little bit. And the Saiyans aren't just aimlessly flying off. They do have a really good idea. Kakarot's idea was to head to Planet Cereal, wherever that is. It takes them a bit of time to find it, but eventually they do get there, because apparently this is where Granolah's from, and if he did wish for this power from a dragon, that means maybe there's a set of Dragon Balls here, so all they have to do is just find it on this planet. But if this is Granolah's home, that means they're probably going to have to face him here again. So they're going to have to lay low for a bit, especially because he's probably going to show up soon. But if this all turned out to be true, it'll be great. First of all, they were able to escape from Granolah, so at least that was a good thing, because it allowed them time to heal on their spaceship, which means they did get a little bit of a boost in power, and with this extra strength they might be able to defeat Granolah themselves next time. But on top of that, if they do get the Dragon Balls here, assuming that they do exist, and they're able to use them, they'll be able to revive Raditz and Nappa. Some extra firepower against Granolah. And to make things even better, this is Granolah's home turf, so fighting here will probably make him hold back a little bit more just to not destroy everything around them. Sure, he knows this planet way better than them, but they're still going to be advantaged because of that. But when they arrive, surprisingly someone comes to greet them, thinking it's Granolah that's getting there. This is a different ship than normal, and he doesn't recognize it. But Monito goes out to see who's here, traveling over to the ship which isn't too far away from his home. He watches from a distance though because he doesn't know if this is an enemy or not. But when he sees who gets off the ship, his eyes widen. He immediately goes over to them. It's two Saiyans, but one of them looks exactly like that Saiyan from so long ago, Bardock. It can't be a coincidence, especially here. It turns out that Monito's judgment was right. This actually is Bardock's son. He goes to the two of them to ask them why they're here and who they are. And out of curiosity, he asks Kakarot if he's related to someone named Bardock. And obviously Kakarot remembers his backstory here, so yeah, he remembers Bardock. Very vaguely though, but he is related to him. That's his father. Although Vegeta finds it pretty interesting that there's a Namekian here. Assuming the Namekians are connected to the Wish Orbs, there really must be a set of them here. So Vegeta asks if he knows anything about them. And Monito doesn't really know how to answer. Of course, he's kind of inclined to help Kakarot because it is Bardock's son, but still, the timing of this is all very weird. Especially because he knows Granolah's after the Saiyans. Before he answers that, he has to ask them one thing. Did they face Granolah? They might not actually know his name, but they just know that he's a Cerealian and he's apparently the last one, so they assume that's who he's talking about. And this isn't really too surprising. If he is the last Cerealian alive, it makes sense that people on this planet would know about him, especially the guy connected to the Dragon Balls that he used. He begs them to not fight anymore. He'll actually help them get the Dragon Balls too, but he doesn't want them to hurt Granolah, and vice versa too. Granolah's being misguided, and he shouldn't be going down this path. They need to stop fighting before things get worse. It's good that they were able to escape, and that they weren't able to kill Granolah either. This is all a big misunderstanding, especially now seeing Kakarot. He's actually inclined to help these two. And despite being Saiyans, they don't seem to be here with malicious intents. They're here for the Dragon Balls. If it was just Vegeta, this would be a different story. But Kakarot being here is what helps out. Soon after, another ship lands nearby. It's Granolah, immediately jumping off. Ready to attack the Saiyans, but he sees Monito there, who tries to get Granolah to stop. But it's going to take more than that for Granolah, especially because unlike here, the Saiyans weren't tricked by the Heaters. The Heaters just sent Granolah after the Saiyans, planting that idea in his head. And Granolah tells Monito to get out of the way. He's going to kill these two Saiyans. But before the fight resumes, the four of them all feel a very strange presence. Vegeta and Kakarot know it very well. It's huge power. No, actually, it's two big powers. Could it be the Heaters coming nearby? No, that doesn't make sense because he would sense four of them. Plus, he actually hasn't seen them in a few days. He doesn't know where they are. And Vegeta and Kakarot are astounded. There's no way. That's Frieza's power. He's alive? But it's not coming towards them. Elsewhere on the planet, Frieza lands with King Cold. The Heaters are actually on planet Cereal right now, suppressing their powers. Vegeta and Kakarot didn't even know to look out for them. And thankfully, their powers are low right now as well as Granolah's, although Granolah's strength almost did flare up there when he got angry. But the Frieza Force doesn't even know those three are here, nor do they care about Granolah. They're here for the Heaters. This entire time, the Heaters have been on the planet looking for the Dragon Balls themselves, but of course, they have to do it manually because there's no Dragon Ball radar for them. But Frieza's not there for that either. He doesn't even know about that. He knows what the Heaters have been up to. They probably thought he was dead and tried to take power, right? The Heaters deny this, but Frieza says he was able to weed out the spies amongst his ranks, seeing some unauthorized communication with the Heaters, giving some info to them that they shouldn't have. But he's still here, so none of that's going to get past him or King Cold. It's time for them to die. The Heaters do get ready to battle, but without a wish for themselves.
they're not really going to be doing much against Frieza. Especially because, unlike normal, Frieza's in a different form here. They're used to seeing him in his first form. They've never seen him like this. It seems like he's constantly going to stay in his final form now, showing his true power to make sure people fear him. Although, he still is kind of holding back because he's not in his 100%. But still, this is more than enough. He kills the heaters with ease. And just to vent his frustrations, as well as a nice warm-up for him, he decides to blow up the planet. After so long healing, he has to get used to this again. Granted, it didn't really take too long for him to heal. The healing chamber did most of the work after all. The issue was, King Cold had to spend time finding him, and Frieza also had to figure out what was going on, catching up to the events that he missed. The healing process didn't take long, but his return, it did take a bit. And even though he wasn't even gone a year, it still seems like a lot has happened. But whatever the heaters are doing here, he won't have to worry anymore. They're dead, and this planet's gone. Frieza's ship leaves. On the other side of the planet, Kakarot, Vegeta, Granolah, and Monito feel the planet rumbling. What's going on? Granolah recognized that as the heater's power. They were fighting Frieza and King Cold for some reason. Although they seemed completely outmatched. With Granolah's new power, he could have easily killed the heaters himself, but he didn't really have a reason to. And Frieza didn't really grow much stronger. Actually, if at all. He hasn't trained yet. So he's pretty much the same strength as before, and if they did fight him, it would have been a really easy battle, especially with the three of them there. But even one of them alone could have been enough. But that's besides the point. This all happened so quickly, and he's already gone. They're more than ready to go fight him, now that they've got a judge of his power and see that he's not too much stronger, if at all. But now there's a bigger issue. The planet starts shaking even more violently, and they realize what happened. Vegeta and Kakarot have seen this before. They've watched planets explode, and they know how it feels. Lava starts erupting out of the ground, and Kakarot yells out at the other two, telling them to leave as quickly as possible. He and Vegeta get back on their ship, launching off into space. Granolah then grabs onto Monito, quickly flying back over to his ship and launching off too, following the Saiyan ship as they watch from space with planet cereal exploding behind them. They don't even see Frieza's ship either. He's already long gone. He couldn't just immediately blow up the planet after all, because otherwise his ship wouldn't have made it out of there. But at least this way he got to watch the fireworks from space, which he loved seeing. Next, he's going to have to find those two Saiyans, but he's going to need to get stronger beforehand. Now he knows there's no more traitors amongst his ranks. Unlike before with the treacherous Saiyans, he didn't take action right away, which he regrets. But here with the heaters, he immediately went after them when he saw that there was a traitor. Granted, the heaters don't really work for him, but those spies amongst his ranks, they were dealt with too. He has a no-tolerance policy for this, and learned from his mistakes with the Saiyans. Next, he'll kill them. In another solar system, the Saiyans and Granolah land on the same planet. Granolah's infuriated. His planet was just destroyed, and the two Saiyans are here too. He wants to fight them again, but this entire time while they were flying, Monito has been trying to calm them down, and the Saiyans tell him to just chill out for a moment. They need to talk. They don't know why Granolah went after them in the first place, or who put the idea in his head to do so. Clearly he's always hated the Saiyans, but something sent him after them just now. He could have done it any time beforehand, but they know something must have caused him to do it at this moment in time. He found out about them living from the heaters, and it seems like they're dead too. But they ask Granolah, doesn't this all seem suspicious? It seems like the heaters were maybe trying to use him or something, especially with the timing of Frieza coming there. And with them being on the planet in the first place, why would they be there on the planet when Granolah's gone? Man, it's a long shot, but the whole reason the Saiyans went to the planet in the first place is because of the Dragon Balls, so maybe the heaters went there for that exact same reason. Granolah doesn't necessarily trust the heaters either, nor does he like working with them, but they did still give him a job and made him stronger. But still, it's not too outlandish to think that they might work against him. But why? For what reason? No one knew that Frieza was alive either. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe the heaters saw an opportunity to get stronger. Maybe they wanted to do what Granolah did. And maybe Granolah was a threat to them. They don't know for sure. They're just speculating here, which Granolah doesn't really like. They still know nothing about him. But still, the theory makes sense. Something was going on that Granolah didn't know about, nor the Saiyans for that matter. But all of that, they shouldn't focus on that now. What matters most now is the fact that Frieza's still alive. The three of them have a common enemy. They shouldn't be fighting each other, especially because these two Saiyans, they weren't the ones responsible for what happened on Planet Cereal. Not decades ago and not now. And Granolah is starting to remember, all those years ago, that one Saiyan who saved him, Bardock. Granted, Bardock was still there to wipe out the Cerealians in the first place, but still, he turned on his people for them. He's not exactly a hero in Granolah's eyes, but still, everything Monito's been telling him, he's been considering it, especially the fact that Kakarot's related to that guy. And after all, the two of them did just fight Frieza and nearly kill him. Of course, they didn't really do a good job at killing him, which Vegeta's kind of ashamed of. He thought he finished the job, but maybe he needed a little more power. He was pretty worn out during that fight after all, and did kill Frieza pretty hastily. Although, he's amazed that Frieza was able to survive that. But all that is besides the point. Granolah's pretty conflicted, and Monito tries to talk him down. At least they're all not fighting anymore. And whatever the heaters had planned, that shouldn't matter either because they're gone now. But Granolah's still incredibly conflicted. Of course, Frieza's a bigger target for him than the Saiyans are. Granolah's planet's gone. Frieza's back, his greatest enemy. He has the power to defeat Frieza, but what are they supposed to do now? Manito says he can bring the planet back. He could just make another set of Dragon Balls and they could just wish it back. But that's an issue still. Frieza will know it came back and will wonder why. It's going to be far too suspicious. They need to deal with Frieza first before bringing the planet back. But Vegeta and Kakarot have an idea. They ask Manito to make a set of Dragon Balls right now. And they're not going to wish for power because that's not really their style. Plus, at the moment they don't really need that because Frieza seems to be weaker than them still. Manito makes a new set of 2 Dragon Balls, agreeing to what Vegeta and Kakarot want to wish for. They want more allies, and they have 2 perfect people in mind for that. A new Taranbo is summoned, and a wish is made. Revive Raditz and Nappa. Taranbo then disappears, granting the wish, but they don't see Raditz and Nappa anywhere nearby. And then it hits Manito, realizing that the wish probably did work, but they wished for Raditz and Nappa to be revived, not brought here. That would have been a separate wish after all. Well, whatever. As long as the wish worked, all they needed to do was go back to that planet they were on because thankfully it shouldn't be destroyed. And Raditz and Nappa would have no way off there because they have no ship there. The 3 of them have more than enough power for what they want to do, but with 2 extra allies, it's also going to be a lot easier. And Kakarot holds a hand out to Granolah. Granolah has no reason to trust them. He understands that. But still, at least for this battle, at least temporarily, Kakarot wants to fight alongside him as an ally. He knows what it feels like to lose others, and to lose his people as a whole. Sure, the Saiyans might have been terrible, but still, Kakarot never grew up knowing his species, outside of the 3 around him, and he wants to keep fighting to live. And if the 3 of them are together, Frieza and King Cold won't be an issue at all. Reluctantly, Granolah shakes his hand. It's time to do this. The group sets out to find Raditz and Nappa. Now, this does take a little bit of time because Vegeta and Kakarot don't necessarily remember the planet they're on. It was just some random planet that was completely unnamed too. While they would love to set a direct course there, they're going to have to just go to the same solar system it's in and just look around and hope for the best. Granolah is still pretty unsure about this. A few weeks later, they are able to find the planet though, and of course, they see Raditz and Nappa there. Surprised that they're alive, especially because once they came back to life, they had to dig themselves out from underground. Vegeta burying them was a nice thought, but it makes that kind of annoying. Vegeta and Kakarot can't believe it. It actually worked. They were brought back to life. They're very glad to be here again because they were in hell before. Now, it wasn't too bad, but still, it's hell. Looks like they're not good enough for heaven. The group has their quick reunion, with Raditz and Nappa filled in on everything, including who that other green-haired guy is, as well as the Namekian. Raditz is pretty unsure what their next move should be. For one, he thinks maybe they should be cautious, but at the same time, with the power that they have now, can't they just kill Frieza? Especially because they have 2 of the legendary Super Saiyans right here. That should be easy, especially because they sense his power, and it wasn't as high as theirs. Now that I think about it, why did they waste time reviving these 2 instead of going right to Frieza and killing him? Well, it wasn't exactly necessary, but it was what they were looking for a while. And especially if Frieza isn't that powerful, it's fine, they have all the time to spare. They did just want to bring Raditz and Nappa back. Nappa laughs at this. He would have never expected Vegeta to do something like this. Seems like he cares about them after all, and Vegeta tells him to be quiet. Anyways, back to what's important. He thinks that now they should attack. And if Frieza really is weaker than them, then spending those few weeks to get Raditz and Nappa back, it wasn't really a big issue, right? Like, what could have changed in those few weeks? However, they all sense something, and they could tell it's far away. It's at the opposite end of the galaxy, but they can sense it over here somehow. It's Frieza's power, it feels like. Vegeta and Kakarot are right. A few weeks aren't going to change anything. Well, besides the fact that waiting a few weeks actually saved them, because now they're sensing Frieza's true power, and it's absurd. When he was awakened, he actually did train for a little bit. He's not doing it right now because he doesn't really like it. He had a busy schedule, and that's part of why his return took so long. The healing process wasn't an issue. He was getting caught up to speed on the Frieza Force again, trying to recruit new soldiers, and spending a little bit of time training. Now, when they sensed his power on planet Cereal, it seemed like he was at the same level as before. That was also the first time Frieza fought anyone after getting healed. Well, it was barely a fight, but still. To Vegeta and Kakarot, it seemed like he was at the same power. And he was. The Frieza they were sensing was on the same level that they felt before. But that wasn't his full strength. Not even close. They can't tell what's going on, but it seems like he's facing someone. And on the opposite end of the galaxy, he is facing a new opponent, Deborah. In an effort to revive Boo, Babidi has been tracking the Frieza Force. Especially with the absurd power of King Cold, he wanted to try and steal his power, but now that Frieza's back, this is even better. And that eventually led to an encounter between Babidi's crew and Frieza's crew. King Cold almost steps in to handle this himself, but Frieza says he's got this. It'll be a good test of his new strength. King Cold watches on very proud too. His son's fully recovered, and he's grown so much stronger. He actually expresses admiration for his son. How could he not? Frieza's done training now. He won't ever do that again, but it was beneficial for what it's worth. Especially with the power he has now. Deborah is even having a tough time against Frieza's regular final form, but it's not really his final form anymore. He aims to make this form a constant now. Especially because his true final form, it's much better than this. He starts powering up. A fierce golden aura surrounds him. His energy is felt everywhere across the universe. Frieza doesn't take on much physical change.
at least from what Dabura could see at first. He's masked by the golden aura, and all Dabura could see is the silhouette of him, which looks pretty similar. But that's the last thing Dabura sees. He's eradicated instantly. Unfortunately, not even being able to see the opponent he's up against. With how quick Frieza's moving, he didn't have the chance. Babidi panics and tries to take energy as quickly as possible. Surely that should have given off some energy for him. But then everything he's seeing goes upside down. His head's cut off, and he's briefly conscious for a bit. And as his head falls to the ground, he sees Frieza in all his glory, with a brilliant golden sheen. What's left of Babidi is eradicated. And Frieza does wonder about that Majin Buu guy. King Cold says it's best not to mess with that, especially if he's not truly revived yet. They should just destroy the egg if they can. But Frieza's not worried. Majin Buu probably wouldn't have been a tough opponent anyways. King Cold had warned Frieza about him before, but Frieza's not concerned right now. With a blast, he eradicates Buu's egg. And Frieza inadvertently did some good here because he stopped Majin Buu's revival, unbeknownst to pretty much everyone else in the universe. Back to the Saiyans and Granolah. They could all sense this going on. Well, it's a good thing they didn't attack yet. They need to get a lot stronger first if they want to fight Frieza, because right now it seems hopeless. How did he get that strong? Does he get some sort of Zenkai boost like them when they get healed? No, that can't be it. Their boost in power when they're near death, they're not nearly as prolific as that. This is something else. Well, Raditz has a pretty simple solution. Can't they just use those Dragon Balls to get stronger? And Monado says it's not wise. There might be a price to pay, especially with the type of power they're trying to achieve. Granolah did have no price, but that was because it was a comparatively weak wish to what they want. Also, Granola's wish was basically unlocking his dormant power. That potential was in him, and Granolah interjects. He did wish for his power, explaining it more since he never did. He had his potential unlocked essentially, but what they want might be beyond their potential. At least from what he remembers the dragon telling him, it's not going to work like that. But then Kakarot gives his opinion. It probably won't work, and also, that's not how they do it. Will it really be satisfying if they wish for the power to defeat Frieza? Sure, it's tantalizing, but still. What kind of warriors are they if they just wish for their power? They don't work like that, and they've realized that long ago. Kakarot's always been about hard work, and Raditz actually agrees with him, with Nappa and Vegeta coming around too. After all, Vegeta's the prince and the legendary Super Saiyan. He's not going to take any shortcuts. Kakarot promises that he'll ascend Super Saiyan and become stronger his own way. He's already nearly caught up to Vegeta too. And he and Vegeta start arguing about strength, and they even fight each other. Raditz and Nappa could see that they clearly haven't changed, and Granolah just thinks these guys are all meatheads. But he laughs it off. This is definitely for the better. Everyone starts training together. Years even pass. This is a pretty major time skip too. Raditz and Nappa unlock Super Saiyan for themselves, and Kakarot and Vegeta even ascend Super Saiyan, going into Super Saiyan 2. But still, even with all this training, even with these few years spent doing this, it's not going to be enough. They could tell they've grown a lot stronger, but still, not on the level of Frieza's power that they sensed years ago. They've been hopping around between different planets too, covering up their tracks and trying to keep their ki as low as possible. Just to make sure Frieza won't find them because he still is looking for them, but they haven't become his main target so far. He's continuing business as usual, although it does stick in his mind that he wants to kill the Saiyans, of course. They did try to kill him after all, so he's going to go after them regardless. But one day amidst their training, somebody does arrive on the planet they're on, sensing some power here and deciding to take it over. Great, the Frieza forces found them, and they're not even prepared yet. Whatever, they're going to fight regardless. A single ship lands on the planet, with one person stepping off. Strangely enough, he looks almost Namekian, although mutated, not like a normal Namekian. Something's weird about him. He says he's here on the order of King Piccolo, and this planet now belongs to him and his empire. They just laugh at him. He tries to attack, and he does have a lot of power, but he's pretty easily defeated by everybody else. They then kill this guy and don't even catch his name. They've never heard of this King Piccolo, and he's probably not a big deal. But a few days later, another ship shows up, and more people step off this time. And they all look like mutated Namekians, except for one who actually looks like a regular Namekian. And he definitely seems like the strongest of the group. So it's true. Drum came here and tried to fight them and died. Again, they still have no clue who these people are, but they're a little bit confused about what's going on here. The normal-looking one steps up and explains. They were already warned and they picked a fight, so they're gonna all die here. This planet now belongs to King Piccolo's empire. As his son, his successor, Piccolo Jr. is here to make sure the job is done. The empire of King Piccolo will grow and expand, and these people won't get in his way. So, what's happened with Earth? Why is Piccolo Jr. out here? Well, let's explain. With no Goku on Earth, things weren't too crazy at first. Pilaf did try to get control with the Dragon Balls, but he couldn't get the Dragon Balls, nor did Bulma for that matter. This led to the Red Ribbon Army getting them instead, because they had way more resources and it was a lot easier. In an effort to stop the Red Ribbon Army though, Pilaf awakened King Piccolo, trying to make sure he could stop them and get the Dragon Balls for himself. Of course, that backfired though. King Piccolo decimated everything, grew vastly stronger, and even forced Kami to fuse into him, also wishing for more power with the Dragon Balls. If you saw that What If mini I made for Halloween called What If King Piccolo Won, it's pretty much similar to what happened there, except without all the Goku stuff. The events and timing of all this are tweaked, but King Piccolo's conquest there is the same as it is here. Basically as an abridged version, so I don't spend too much time covering that. King Piccolo has known about these other empires too, and he doesn't really like that. It's all going to be his soon, with Earth as the main base. Although King Piccolo himself isn't present here, but he did send his strongest sons here. And these aren't his only sons, he has others too. But Piccolo Jr. is his main successor and his strongest son, hence him being Piccolo Jr. But even with a bold entrance like that, it doesn't really amount to much. The rest of King Piccolo's sons get defeated, with one still standing. Those guys were all schmucks, but this other guy actually seems to have some sort of power. Of course, they notice Monito here too, and they won't attack him. They are actually going to spare the Namekians until they have more than enough power to actually take over the planet. Not that Namek's going to be a tough target, but it's basically out of respect for them. It is King Piccolo's home after all, and after fusing with Kami and regaining all of his memories of the nameless Namekian, he has some sort of respect for it. Piccolo warns Monito that he should get out of here. He won't aim to kill him, but if he dies in the collateral damage, it's not his fault. Kakarot says this guy's pretty cocky, especially with all his brothers being defeated like that. How could he still be so confident? Well, it's because he's not at his full power yet. Honestly, he's surprised. This planet does have some valuable resources, and that's the reason they went here. But from what they knew about it, there was no one on here. They just need to clear out these people first, and then it'll be theirs. And his brothers dying, that's not really a big issue. They could be revived. Plus, that's not all they've got. The main muscle's arriving a little bit late, with another ship showing up, with a new Namekian stepping off. King Piccolo. And he's gonna waste no time here. He looks over at Piccolo Jr. and says this should be pretty easy. The two of them start powering up, with the same orange aura surrounding them. Their power skyrockets, beyond belief too, as they reveal their true power, simply called their orange form. Now, the Saiyans didn't have this on their bingo cards. They couldn't have expected this to happen. But this is good. Finally, a test of power for them after so long. They could see if their trainings really paid off, because these guys seem like strong opponents. The four Saiyans all go Super Saiyan, with Kakarot and Vegeta then jumping into Super Saiyan 2 on top of that, with Granolah using his ultimate power. And he could tell just by analyzing them. They're not too different from him, and he seems like they wish for power too, just like Granolah did. But it's weird. Something's different about it. It's like wishing for the power, it was different for them because they had some sort of connection to the Dragon Balls. He can't tell for sure, but it's just a theory. And Monito concurs. Now, this does shock King Piccolo and Piccolo Jr. because they didn't expect these guys to be this strong. Sure, they defeated King Piccolo's sons, but they didn't even transform yet. Not that it matters though. Orange King Piccolo and Orange Piccolo Jr. will be more than enough to defeat them, seemingly at first. An all-out battle begins, although it's a pretty short-lived one. It still is a 2v5 after all, and Kakarot's group is pretty powerful. King Piccolo seems to be the stronger of the two. Given the point in which their powers awakened, and the fact that the two Piccolos are separate rather than the same person reincarnated, this makes Piccolo Jr. a lot weaker than he should be, because it's not the Piccolo we know. Hence the distinction. King Piccolo, though, is actually a pretty formidable opponent, and once they realize that he should be the main target, they all gang up on him, and it is a pretty tough battle for him. And they end up killing King Piccolo, barely being able to do so, and defeating Piccolo Jr. in the process. Alright, well, that was really unexpected, but it does lead them to somewhere else. The planet he's from, it sounds like some actually developed civilization, a place where they can go and hide, a place where they won't be noticed by Frieza, and a place that would actually have a much better life than here. Even though it was ruled by King Piccolo, the planet is still intact. I mean, what's the point of ruling over a desolate planet? Plus, it sounded like the planet had its own set of Dragon Balls, although it's not going to have it anymore because Piccolo's dead. And since this planet has been discovered and they just had an all-out battle here, it's probably best to leave it just in case it gets tracked by Frieza's army next. The group sets a course for Earth, also healing in the meantime from that battle. Again, really strange, but still, a nice experience for them. But just like with Frieza, it seemed like they didn't fully finish the job. Sure, King Piccolo might be dead, or at least he's on his last legs. He and Piccolo Jr. are barely surviving, dying out together. King Piccolo crawls over to his son, who's not in as bad a condition as him. Vegeta and Kakarot did try to finish them off with separate blasts, and it mangled their bodies, but it didn't fully destroy them, letting them briefly live after the fact. King Piccolo can't believe it. With all the power he had, he's dying like this? He's not gonna have it. But they were fools for not fully finishing them off. It seemed like they were in a hurry to leave, especially with how bad of a condition they were in. He doesn't know what they're so fearful of, but it works in his favor. As he crawls over to Piccolo Jr., he then places a hand on him. Piccolo Jr. is unconscious right now, but he's in much better condition and might live a little bit longer. This is their best shot at living. His son will carry on his legacy. It's his namesake. He always knew that Piccolo Jr. would take over the Empire someday, and it seems like that time has come. In a last-ditch effort, he fuses all of his power into Piccolo Jr., hoping it'll allow his son to live and get vengeance. Make his father proud. After departing from this planet, the group then lands on Earth, finding it after some time, and deciding that this will be their new base of operations. Well, at least for now. It's a pretty unassuming planet, and there's no way Frieza would know about it. And there's a lot of people here, so it's pretty easy to blend in. And you know, despite being under the rule of King Piccolo, that guy that they just actually killed,
This planet seems to be in pretty decent condition, and now that they don't have King Piccolo, they accidentally just liberated it in a way. Minato then does something strange on his own, without anyone even asking it. While they were on the other planet, they did collect the Dragon Balls just in case they needed them, so Minato has both of them at the moment. And to everyone's surprise, he summons Taranbo and makes a wish, to restore everything destroyed by King Piccolo and his crew. Earth itself isn't badly damaged, but there are a lot of people that died from it. Minato decided to do this on a whim because, first of all, if they're going to use this planet as a base, he kind of wants to do something nice for them. And second of all, seeing what Piccolo did, he realized that this planet might be kind of barren without that. Like, there's definitely still people on here, but it would be easier to blend in if they had more people here, right? Also, better things on this planet too. It's a good thing for everyone and the others don't really protest it. Granolah is still hoping that they can get Planet Cereal back soon, but still, they do need to wait a bit. Not too long after summoning Shenron though, a car flies over. A random woman hops out, not believing what she saw. Did she just see a dragon get summoned? Minato apologizes to the others. He didn't realize that they'd be spotted this far out. She's been looking so long for the Dragon Balls, trying to restore Earth. Well, thankfully for her, it's already done. Looks like Minato already blew their cover anyways, so they might as well explain to her because she obviously saw it. They learn that her name is Bulma, and she had been searching for the Dragon Balls before but never got them. And now, it seems like everything is saved. There is no more King Piccolo. There's no more of his army. And a wish was made to restore a lot of the damage done too. These guys basically saved Earth. And it looks like there's another dragon here. Well, it might not be permanent, but yeah, in a way Minato did bring another dragon here. But she wasn't the only one to notice the dragon get summoned. A bunch of other flying vehicles start coming towards them, with Bulma quickly getting out of the area because they realize that this could be trouble. It's the Red Ribbon Army. Of course, they've been trying to get a new set of Dragon Balls too. They haven't been able to find any anywhere, but now that they saw a dragon appear out of nowhere, they know that these people have something to do with it. They're defeated pretty much in an instant by Kakarot just shouting, basically. He doesn't even need to use a key attack. But thankfully, they do have something else up their sleeve. They have been working on a way to counter King Piccolo. He hasn't been on the planet for a bit, and it's just been his sons that have been taken over here. And it seems King Piccolo's crew is actually dead now. The Red Ribbon Army had just finished a project, but they didn't get to use it yet because no one was on the planet to use it against. They were planning on using this as revenge against King Piccolo, but also to get the Dragon Balls. This creation took a while, but it's finally done. One of the other soldiers phones into someone, telling them they need all the power they can get. Well, it looks like they're going to have to fight. In Vegeta's eyes, if these people are going to be causing trouble regardless, they might as well just fight them now and get it over with, instead of having to worry about it later. 3 people then fly over, with 2 of them not having a presence at all, and one of them doesn't even look to be human. They waited to awaken this because it might be a little bit risky, but now's the time. A bit of the Red Ribbon Army did survive apparently, which is why they all came here at this moment in the first place. But that includes some of their scientists, mainly Dr. Gero, as well as a couple others, and they were all working together against something. See, unlike with Goku, the army wasn't entirely wiped out, leaving just a few survivors. No, there was actually a couple hundred of them, with King Piccolo using a lot of them as his own personal army too sometimes. But first and foremost, they were loyal to the Red Ribbon Army, and basically double agents. And Dr. Gero got a bunch of good resources, turning himself into an android, and creating a few others too, but most were failures. Except for one, his perfect project, Cell. Now, it isn't the same Cell that we know. He has a completely different genetic makeup and development, and he's perfect from the get-go because the other scientists helped him out. Plus, it's better to just make a perfect android from the get-go. He would have loved to make human-based cyborgs, but that wasn't going to work here. Instead, they focused everything on this one project, this biomechanical android. This is their ultimate weapon against Piccolo, using his own DNA against him. Most of Cell's power is gathered from Piccolo and his sons. Sure, they did get some data from other people, like from past world tournaments, but there wasn't really too much to work off of, especially because they weren't planning on making it just then. So, he's mostly Namekian actually, and most importantly, he has the powers of Piccolo Jr. and King Piccolo. Well, Raditz lets them know that unfortunately their project was worthless because Piccolo's already dead. They killed him. And if they're here for Dragon Balls, they're already gone. They were just used. Of course, the army won't accept this. They're going to take over Earth now that King Piccolo's gone. They didn't just want revenge against Piccolo, they also wanted to take over the planet. And they do need Dragon Balls for that, of course. So it looks like they're enemies now. They launch their perfect android against Vegeta's crew. This Cell also acts differently from the Cell that we know, most notably actually following orders from the others and being a subordinate. This is mainly because they had a lot better resources, and they were working with other scientists. It wasn't just Gero working in some cave. It was a covert operation, which is why it took this long, but it was a lot more successful, and he still awakened sooner than the normal Cell did. That one had to time travel after all with how late he awakened. But here he's ready and they get to use him. And this android's actually pretty powerful. The group has never seen anything like this before, and they can definitely sense the power of Piccolo and his sons in this guy. But also to the surprise of the Red Ribbon Army, they have a challenge here. They weren't prepared for this. The Saiyans did also grow stronger on their way back thanks to healing, and they didn't even need to use the healing pods anymore. Minato's grown so adept with healing that he's been able to do it a lot quicker and more efficiently. He could fully heal people more often now. But even without that, they would have healed in the healing pods, so they're stronger than before thanks to Piccolo. But still, even with all of them fighting together, they're having a tough time against Cell, And they come to learn that he could actually regenerate too. They're going to need to completely destroy him if they want to win this. If they can't defeat this guy, they'll have no chance against Frieza. And it does worry them too, because now that they're fighting again with this guy here, it's just like when they were on the other planet. Giving off this much power might alert Frieza, which kind of counteracts the whole purpose of them being here in the first place. So they want to make this quick. But to make things even worse, something muddies the waters as another person joins the fight. It's a familiar orange face, as a bunch of ki blasts rain down from above. A new person descends onto the battlefield. It's Piccolo Jr. So, the Red Ribbon Army's staging a coup, aren't they? He simply glares over at them, and just by moving his eyes, he destroys the entire army, including the modified Gero. So, what's this? Their new android creation? He expected them to strike back someday. But how's Piccolo alive? They killed him. Vegeta's sure that they finished the job there, especially after letting Frieza go like that. They didn't want to make the same mistake twice. And Piccolo says they're right. They would have finished the job. He and his father were as good as dead. But thanks to some quick thinking on King Piccolo's part, he gave all of his power to Piccolo, and they fused together. Now he's much stronger than before. So while they were beaten last time, it's not going to be the same here. Although, it looks like he has another opponent too, with this bio-android from the Red Ribbon Army. And even though that guy has his powers, it's not going to be enough. Not at all. A three-way battle begins. Piccolo versus Cell versus Vegeta's crew. This is his domain. Vegeta's crew is not allowed here, and the Red Ribbon androids need to be destroyed for their betrayal like that. And while Cell doesn't really act on his own here, thankfully Gero already gave him his orders, and with the army being destroyed, he does have a target in mind. Mainly they're after Piccolo. He's been coded to be like that after all. He even completely stops focusing on Vegeta's crew, attacking only Piccolo Jr. This gives Vegeta's group a moment to breathe, with Granolah trying to analyze their enemies too, trying to pick out any weak points in them. They only have a few seconds here because Piccolo's focused on everyone, even though Cell's only focused on Piccolo. Right now, don't worry about Cell. As far as they're concerned, until Piccolo's defeated, he's kind of an ally in a way, because he's only focused on Piccolo Jr. right now. Why not use that in their favor? Have everyone gang up on Piccolo. No matter how strong he is now, even with fusion or whatever, there's no way he could take all of them on at once, including Cell. Don't focus any attacks on Cell, just Piccolo. And Granolah powers up into Ultimate, trying to point out any weak spots on Piccolo. And they've come up with a strategy to attack. Granolah's gonna attack first, basically pointing out where the weak spots are. And then, everyone will focus all their attacks on that. Thankfully, Granolah has enough strength for himself to even do this too. He's not just a spotter for them, he also is attacking just as much as they are. And it's like Cell completely forgot that they're there because he's only focused on attacking Piccolo Jr. He doesn't even pay attention to the Saiyans or Granolah. Monato's also retreated by now and is watching from far away, hoping that everything goes okay. But Piccolo is incredibly strong, especially after fusing. He's a tough opponent even with them ganging up on him like this. And he decides to finish everyone off quick. He knows what they're trying to do. He starts growing in size, while still in his orange form no less. He then lets out a massive burst of ki, going in all directions, knocking everyone away. First, to get rid of that android. He grabs Cell in one hand, and Cell is pretty powerful, trying to wiggle free. But then Piccolo clasps his hand with his other hand, trying to crush Cell in between it. He already knows by now that Cell can regenerate, but that's kind of useless if every bit of him is destroyed. Using all of his power, Piccolo crushes Cell in his hands, trying to crush him as small as possible. He then opens his mouth, charging a powerful beam of energy in front of him. Vegeta's crew tries to take this moment to attack, but it's too dangerous. If he even turns in their general direction, they'll be fried by that blast. At least if they strike at the wrong moment. The blast is fully charged. Piccolo lets go of Cell, and the second he's freed from his hands, Cell is engulfed by a massive mouth beam from Piccolo, completely incinerating every part of him. This did wear Piccolo out a bit, but it wasn't too big of an issue. And with Cell being his strongest individual opponent, that means he could focus on the others. That android might have had his power, but not his current power, just his previous power. The Red Ribbon Army definitely didn't expect a fusion, but Piccolo feels a sharp pain all around him. As he fired the blast, the second he launched it, he was so focused on that attack that he didn't even move. And in rapid succession, Granolah tried to attack his weak points, with everyone else helping him too. And with him being a giant, it was a lot more simple to do so. He tries to turn back at them to attack, but he collapses from the pain. They attacked him so much, so rapidly. In that short span of time, he couldn't even stand anymore. He's barely able to get back up. How did he take that much damage? He's stronger than all of them collectively, including Cell. He still doesn't realize what Granolah's technique is, and he doesn't get how they defeated him. Well, at least that army's dealt with. Once more, Piccolo surrounds himself with an intense ki, launching a ki blast in all directions. Looking like he's self-destructing, but he's not. He's just trying to get everyone away once more. This isn't over yet. He'll attack soon enough. He just needs to recover. He was ganged up here. He wouldn't have lost otherwise. It was all because of that pesky android. Using his own power against him. If it was just Vegeta's crew, they would have been easy to defeat. But they took the opportunity to attack there. They were cowardly, and Piccolo's angered by that. But he does have other domains to take over still. With his father gone and all his brothers gone too, Piccolo's really the only one who could take care of them. And he needs to make sure his influence is still out there. One day he'll come back to Earth and take it over again. He takes a ship off into space, going to a planet that's already been conquered. With Demon King Piccolo's power and will, he could do this all alone. The group's surprised but glad that they beat him again. With him having that much power, they weren't sure if they'd be able to win, especially with that android here too. Thankfully, a lot of the fight was Piccolo versus Cell. But still, it demotivates them a bit because they couldn't even really defeat this guy. They had to gang up on him with someone else, and rely on Granola's power too. Of course, Piccolo's power is kind of adjusted here so he just doesn't one-shot everything, also due to his different history here. But from what they could tell, Frieza's still way stronger than Piccolo. And Piccolo's way stronger than them, and they couldn't defeat Piccolo, so what does that mean for Frieza? They're still kinda screwed, aren't they? Well, at least if that Piccolo guy comes back for more, he'll make for a good punching bag, and for good practice too. That same car from before flies over, with Bulma then hopping out. Did she just see Piccolo leaving, and coming here in the first place too? Did they not finish the job? Vegeta tells her to relax. They thought they killed Piccolo, but it looks like he fused with his father. So then she turns to him to scold him specifically. So they lied about killing Piccolo, and Vegeta tells her to be silent. They didn't do it out of the goodness of their heart or for Bulma. They did it because Piccolo and his father tried to kill them. Besides, she should be happy that they have the Dragon Balls back too. But still, how could they let Piccolo go? Are they insane, especially after what just happened? The others watch on as Vegeta and Bulma argue. This human's kinda crazy, especially standing up to the prince like that. And she tells him she'll be back soon for the Dragon Balls, at least once they're recovered. She's gotta study them and make a new Dragon Radar. Hopefully the previous one just works for this one. And even though they argue the entire time, honestly, Vegeta found her kinda interesting. What a strange planet. Although they are concerned now that Frieza will find them here, especially with the power like Piccolo's. He might try and track them down. Well, they can't keep running. Like, they could, but it's getting kind of annoying at this point. So, for the time being, they'll stay here on Earth. But soon enough, they're about to have an even bigger challenge, and one that might even thwart off Frieza, preventing him from coming to Earth in the first place. Far away in a different realm, Beerus awakens from his slumber. He was dreaming of something but can't really remember what. There's a very short passage of time. About 1 month or so goes by when Beerus wakes up. Strangely enough now, Monaido is the de facto guardian of Earth. Taranbo restored everything here, although Kami isn't included in that because he's technically alive still as part of Piccolo, so he's not actually back here. The Dragon Balls have been gone for a while, but they're technically back now thanks to Taranbo. So Earth has a new dragon. Not that Monaido even realizes any of this. But worth noting because that is the case here. Beerus gets to Earth soon enough and knows that there's some Saiyans here. Thanks to Whis telling him everything that happened. They seem pretty interesting too, especially with how strong Frieza is now. The fact that they're trying to stand up against him is pretty impressive. Apparently Frieza's grown far more powerful than he was when Beerus was awake before. And pretty much right when he gets there, he fights the Saiyans. They kind of have an idea of who Beerus is thanks to Vegeta telling them. So they know how fearsome he is, and they're just going to try and appease him as much as they can, even if their power can't match his at the moment, which obviously it doesn't. Although, amidst all this chaos, Bulma actually arrives over on the scene too, curious to see what's going on. Immediately she and Vegeta argue again because Vegeta says she doesn't know what she's messing with. But she's able to scare Vegeta off. Whatever, it's her funeral, it's not his fault. And the more Beerus thinks about it, he realizes that this planet might actually be worthless, especially with everything revolving around Piccolo. Whis told him a brief history of the planet and the fact that the Saiyans only just got here. This isn't even really their planet. You know, it might be worthwhile to just destroy everything here, including the Saiyans. Especially with how disrespectful everyone's being, it's kinda deserved. Although, he will give them one more chance though. How is the food here on this planet? Before he destroys it, he at least wants to check that out. And thankfully with Bulma there, she's able to tell Beerus about all the great food here. The Saiyans actually didn't know about this because they haven't been here too long and haven't really been exploring the cities and such. But it turns out Earth has some pretty great food, especially with everyone now revived and things being rebuilt. Slowly Earth is going back to its normal self, and there's more to experience here. So, thanks to Monaido's wish, not only did everyone on Earth come back, but all the great food did too. But still, they are curious about what the Super Saiyan God is. Beerus tells them he'll give them a bit. Bulma's gonna briefly take him on a food tour and then he'll be right back here. He hopes they discover something by then. They really have no clue of what to do here, but the best option might be to ask for Taranbo's help. Maybe they could just unlock their power like Granolah did. That might work. But before they actually ask to just have the form granted to them, they realize that there's a better way. Because they don't really just want to have it handed to them. Especially because they don't even know what the Super Saiyan God is. They don't know if it's a person, or a transformation, or it's something else. So, instead they ask for Taranbo to tell them what the Super Saiyan God is. He explains everything, telling them how the form works and everything. Also, explaining how it could be obtained. There's 2 methods, both of which are kinda tough. One of them involves a ritual, which is pretty impossible at the moment because they only have 4 Saiyans. As far as they know, there's no other Saiyans alive in the universe. Well, Vegeta knows of Tarble, but it would be kind of a hassle to get him here, and also, that's only 5 Saiyans. Plus, they don't even know if they qualify as righteous enough for the ritual. But the next thing Taranbo tells them is pretty interesting. Since there's never a record of anyone training for the power, and there's only the person getting the ritual for it, Taranbo doesn't actually know that they can obtain the power through training. But he explains how the form works too, and that at least gives them an idea of what it is, and maybe they can unlock it through training by getting that power. Maybe some godly training is what they need. Beerus probably isn't going to like this news, but it's really all they have for him. Eventually, when he comes back with a bunch of food, he's pretty pleased. He'll spare this planet, but he does want to know what they came up with, so they tell him everything that happened. So they're not sure if they can even unlock the form, and if they can, they're gonna have to train under him or Whis. Great, he's gonna have to babysit these Saiyans now. You know what? It's fine with him. He'll be going back and forth between Earth anyways, so they can get him food. And he'll give them a time frame too. If they can't get the Super Saiyan God form within a year, he'll kill them and destroy this planet, and just have Frieza be his rival. This is sort of a bluff to keep them motivated, but also, he's half serious. So the Saiyans go with Beerus. Granolah actually stays on Earth because, first of all, he actually wants to stay with Monaido, and second of all, Beerus has no reason to bring him to his planet. But it's fine with him. He's had enough of fighting for now and would rather just chill out here for a bit. And thankfully, Earth is pretty peaceful at the moment, so this is a nice temporary home for him. He still does want to bring Cereal back, but he has to wait until they get rid of Frieza. Speaking of Frieza, where is he? Well, he's had scouts all over the place. After that fight between Piccolo, Cell, and the Saiyans, they actually did pick up on that power really far away. So, some scouts went to Earth and finally located the Saiyans. Frieza didn't go here though because by the time the scouts found Earth, they actually did see Beerus there. Not only is that an issue for Frieza, but on top of that, it appears that the Saiyans aren't much stronger. From what the scouts gathered, yeah, the Saiyans have actually grown in power, but there's no way they could beat Frieza as they are now. But strangely enough, they randomly left the planet too. Once Beerus and Whis arrived, they stopped keeping tabs on the Saiyans out of fear of being spotted by Beerus and Whis. Because when Frieza told them who that purple cat is, they were terrified. So when they check back on Earth, they see that the Saiyans aren't there, and they can't get a read on Granolah either. Not that he's even a main target, but they know he's working with them. Maybe they saw the scouts and ended up leaving. But you know what? Frieza's kinda gotten over that. He asked them to track the Saiyans, but he's not gonna focus too much on that now. Sure, he does want to get his revenge, but if they're really not that much stronger, he might not have anything to worry about, especially with his golden form, plus with King Cold at his side, there's no way that the Saiyans would be able to beat them. His empire continues to grow, and he has much more pressing matters at hand, especially if Beerus is awake, that could be trouble for him. Frieza actually hasn't trained anymore at all because he doesn't feel the need. He only did it out of necessity, but he does wonder if he can get more allies to help him. Plus, he is kind of busy right now, so it'd be nice to have more strong scouts. Like, he has all the Frieza Force soldiers, but not a lot of them are powerful. And just in case the Saiyans come back to Earth, it might be worthwhile to send someone there. Someone powerful. About a year passes. The Saiyans train away on Beerus' planet, while Frieza looks for a new ally. With a ship landing on Earth one day, Frieza found some pretty interesting allies out in space. 2 Saiyans, actually. Thankfully, they didn't wrong Frieza at all, so while he does think he should kill them, they might be useful for him. They seem to hate the other Saiyans, if anything. So, they have a common enemy. Broly and Paragus arrive on Earth. The scouters that the Frieza Force is using to monitor Earth, they're not really too effective unless they're actually on the planet, or if there's a giant battle going on, the powers are easy to sense. If the Saiyans are on this planet and their powers are low, even with how weak the rest of the population is, they could blend in pretty easily, but if they send a scout directly on Earth, that might be a much more effective method of tracking the Saiyans. And Frieza wants a very strong scout on Earth, so he sent Broly there. Especially with how great his power is, the Saiyans will probably sense him and be drawn out that way. Not only is he good for gathering info, but he'll be good as bait. And of course, someone is there to sense him. Immediately after Paragus and Broly touch down, Granolah gets over to the area. Kind of mortified, not only seeing that there's a Frieza Force soldier here, but to see that it's another Saiyan. 2 of them, actually. One of them's pretty old too, which means that guy was probably around when the Saiyans attacked Planet Cereal. Regardless of this, Granolah would be on guard, especially with seeing Frieza Force soldiers here. But the fact that it's 2 Saiyans and one of them that's maybe connected to his past, he's instantly hostile. Granolah's ki flares up. He points a finger out, with his other eye turning red as well. He tells them to state who they are now or die. He hopes these guys aren't that strong, but still, this is bad. That means Frieza's probably found them. And Paragus can recognize Granolah. He was one of the targets that Frieza mentioned. There were the Saiyans here, but apparently a Namekian and a Cerealian were part of the group. But this Cerealian is pretty strong. Paragus has an offer for him though. He says he'll let Granolah live if he tells him where the Saiyans are. Even if they were here, Granolah wouldn't tell them, but it looks like they're out of luck because the Saiyans are far away from this planet. Right now it's just him here. Well, then Granolah's useless to them. And since he is one of the targets, Paragus tells Broly to attack. A very brief battle ensues. Broly's not enraged here because it's just Granolah, and if anything, Granolah's the one who's enraged here. But this means that right now Broly's not too powerful of an opponent, especially with Granolah immediately powering up to his full strength and locating Broly's vital points. He's seemingly able to take down Broly pretty easily. But this is actually enough to push Broly over the edge. And now he's mad. Despite taking those attacks, he gets back up, attacking Granolah again. And Granolah could tell he's growing as he fights. He tries to hit Broly's vital points, but he just brushes it off. He's powering through the pain. Granolah could tell he's doing damage, but he doesn't know why. Broly's just mindless right now. This guy's bad news. And as Granolah keeps trying everything he can, Broly eventually powers up once more, going into his wrathful state. By now, of course, Paragus has tried to stop him, but he doesn't have a remote. The people who actually found them were Chilai and Lemo, so Chilai actually still did steal his remote and everything. Wanting to protect Broly, they're actually watching nearby on the ship that they arrived on. Thankfully for Granolah, Frieza's not actually here at the moment. he has much more pressing matters to attend to. It's only Paragus, Broly, and a couple Frieza Force soldiers, including G-Lai and Lemmo. But still, Broly alone is enough to try and take down Granolah. But help arrives in a really weird form. A familiar power rockets onto the scene. It's Piccolo Jr. He looks different from before. He's not in his base form, and he's not in that orange form he uses. He's in his power awakened state. Granolah could tell that it's a weaker transformation. But even so, it's incredibly strong. Piccolo just arrived back and already sensed a fight on Earth. It's just like he told the other Saiyans. This planet is his to take over. It's King Piccolo's will after all. Granolah tries to warn him about who they're fighting, but Piccolo doesn't want to hear any of it. He tells Granolah that he's got this. So, strangely enough, the two of them start fighting together against Broly. Piccolo's the powerhouse here, even though he's not using his full strength. And Broly is already pretty damaged thanks to Granolah hitting his vital points. And Piccolo actually remembers that too. That's how they took him down before. This guy, Granolah, he was the one doing all that. Well, he tells Granolah to keep doing that. Piccolo will be the one to attack, while Granolah will basically be the spotter here. And together, the two of them are able to take down Broly. But Granolah's still confused. Well, on a few things. For one, why is Piccolo here? Well, he's actually been back on Earth for a bit, and he's been waiting for the Saiyans to get back just to fight them. He knows that if he tries to take over the planet, the Saiyans will stop him, so he needs to stop them first. Granolah's technically his enemy, so he should be taking him out right now too, but whoever this guy is, he's a bigger threat. Besides, he wants to fight all of them at once. The best way to prove his power is to fight all 4 Saiyans at once, alongside Granolah too. The same battle as before, without that android interrupting. And then Earth will be his again. Okay, well, next order of business. What are Paragus and Broly doing here? And Granolah walks up to Paragus too, thinking he might have something to do with the destruction of Cereal's people. And Paragus says he actually does know about that, but he wasn't there. He just wants the Saiyans dead. Not just for Frieza's sake, but his own sake too. He thought Broly would be enough, and maybe he would have if he grew a little bit more here. But thanks to Piccolo intervening, he was stopped. Granolah tells Paragus he knows he's being used, right? Once Frieza gets rid of the other 4 Saiyans, he's gonna get rid of these 2 as well. What, did he think Broly would be able to defeat Frieza too? Because after the fact, they're probably gonna have to fight Frieza next. And Paragus kinda knows this too, especially after seeing Broly lose here. Granolah even lets Paragus know that Piccolo was the one to defeat Broly. And from when they last sensed Frieza's power, Frieza was actually above Piccolo, which takes Piccolo by surprise too. There's no way that's true. King Piccolo's army was about to attack him and take over his empire, expanding their own. But Granolah says it's probably good they didn't get to do that because then they'd all be dead. Well, they're dead anyways, but at least one of them survived, technically 2 because King Piccolo lives on within Piccolo. That's all besides the point though. Paragus says it's too late for everybody. They're working with Frieza now, and Frieza now knows that they're here, at least that they'll probably come back here. And knowing that Broly won't be able to defeat Frieza, at least as he is now, it makes Paragus feel like he's been backed into a corner. Now, thankfully they stopped Broly before he got too strong, and maybe if he grew a little bit more, he actually would have been able to stop Frieza. Pretty easily, in fact. But thanks to quick work from Granolah and Piccolo, they saved themselves and Earth, and made Paragus feel a lot less confident in Broly's power. Which is good too. If Broly won here, which he was very close to doing, Paragus would go after the other Saiyans without a single thought. But now he's actually reconsidering. They were defeated that quickly. And he knew what Granolah said was probably true all along. But still, now that he thinks about it more, they're probably next on Frieza's list. As much as he hates it, it makes him wonder, should he be working with the Saiyans instead of against them? Meanwhile on Beerus' planet, the Saiyans are completely unaware of all this. Their training is going really well, and Beerus is impressed too. At some point, Champa did try looking for the Super Dragon Balls, and even stopped by Beerus' planet, although a tournament's never proposed. Because Champa could see their power firsthand and knows he'd probably lose pretty quickly, because all the Saiyans here are not just Super Saiyan gods, but they've ascended that. They've gained an even greater level of power. Plus, they also did tell Champa that there's probably another set of Dragon Balls in his universe that'll be able to restore Earth there, instead of having to use the Super Dragon Balls for that, and to swap Earth from Universe 7 to 6 because that's way too complicated for what he wants. So, thankfully that fends him off for now. But of course, Frieza's their biggest threat going forward, as always. He hears all the info from Paragus too, and realizes that he might need to train more as well. He doesn't know where the Saiyans are, but he knows for a fact that they're probably getting a lot stronger than they were. All this time, Frieza has been training on and off. He told people he wasn't, which is sort of true because it wasn't consistent. But for all these years, here and there he has been doing some light training, so he has grown pretty significantly since getting his golden form. But he wonders if that'll still be enough, especially without knowing what the Saiyans have up their sleeves. Looks like he'll have to find out soon enough though. After the battle with Broly, Granolah and Piccolo are kind of in a weird spot. Even though they technically should try to kill each other, it seems like now that they have a common enemy, and they might need to work together here. Piccolo still does want to take over Earth, but how is he going to do that if Frieza comes to destroy everything? His vengeance on the Saiyans can wait. So as much as he hates it, he's going to team up with Granolah, and the Saiyans if they decide to show up, but it doesn't seem like they're going to come here anytime soon. The two of them might benefit from training together, especially because it doesn't seem like Granolah's been doing intense training during this time, and Piccolo could probably help with that. Meanwhile, on Beerus' planet, it's the exact opposite.
The Saiyans have been training a bunch this entire time. Obviously, they've gotten Super Saiyan God by now, and even surpassed that, getting Super Saiyan Blue. Trying to go beyond this now. Whis wonders if they'd ever be able to achieve Ultra Instinct, but it doesn't seem like it's in their nature. And before Beerus decides to show them anything else, he wants to see what their true potential is like. If they can go beyond Super Saiyan Blue, maybe he'll consider showing them something else. But it looks like it's just going to be a waiting game for now. Although, they eventually do hear of what happened on Earth, thanks to Whis telling them. It seems like somebody came to Earth to try and kill Granolah and the Saiyans. Thankfully for the Saiyans, they weren't there to be killed, because their opponent was pretty strong, and if he was allowed to grow any further, he might have accomplished his goal. But luckily, Granolah did stop him in time with Piccolo's help. So there's another Saiyan out there, and he's working for Frieza of all people. Interesting. Especially hearing about his power, they could tell something strange about that guy. And then wonder what Frieza's up to. He's clearly going to make a move soon, so they're going to need to kick into high gear. It's probably best they stay here for now, not only because of safety, but also because it's better for training if they just stay here at the moment. About a month passes. As Granolah and Piccolo are training together, a ship lands on Earth, another Frieza Force ship. He's here already? They were prepared, but they didn't expect him to come this soon. But thankfully for them, the person that steps off of it is familiar. It's Broly, stepping off the ship with Chilai Lemo and then Paragus behind him, trying to warn Broly against this. But Broly assures Paragus this is what he wants to do. He's been trapped on Vampa his whole life, and even though the Frieza Force did find him, working under Frieza just means he's going to spend the rest of his life still cooped up like this. Whether it's him being stuck on Vampa or him being stuck in the Frieza Force, it's still miserable. And on top of that, it's like they were told before. Frieza will get to them next anyways, and on top of that, they should be working with the other Saiyans if anything. This is pretty surprising for Paragus, not only because he's rebelling against him, but also the fact that Broly's being so coherent about this and his motives. Chilai and Lemo have really gotten to him. He would have never thought like this before, never would have rebelled against his father. But this is what Broly wants to do, and Paragus realizes that there's probably no going back at this point. Granolah and Piccolo come to learn that not only did they desert the Frieza Force, but also, Broly actually just killed King Cold. Frieza was off on his own, with King Cold assigned to watch over them. And while Frieza might have been powerful, King Cold wasn't necessarily at the same strength. He was pretty powerful, but for Broly, especially after just coming out of a fight, it wasn't really too big of a deal for him. And all of this is a big message to Frieza. Also, it's really all they could do at the moment, but it's a message of rebellion, the fact that Frieza's time is about to come to an end soon. Broly apologizes for everything. He still feels bad for coming here and revealing the location of everybody. Well, it seems like Frieza already knew about them in the first place, and Broly basically just confirmed what they already had suspicions of. So, not really his fault. But Granola's glad to see that he's coming to their side. And Paragus still wonders where the other Saiyans are, but Granolah says he's gonna have to wait a bit for them to come here. Also, to make sure that they're actually on their side, they're gonna need to spend some time with Broly and Paragus. Did I just make a fusion name? And Paragus understands that. He thinks they'll be valuable assets. Well, not him, but Broly at least. And he thinks that if they could harness Broly's power to its fullest, then he'd be able to defeat Frieza single-handedly. Paragus was never able to. And maybe these two could do something. So this creates kind of a weird crew on Earth. Piccolo, Broly, and Granolah. Paragus says that Frieza won't come until the Saiyans are back, which is a good thing. And honestly at this point, he doesn't really care for Granolah or Piccolo. Piccolo's at the bottom of his concern list, and really, he doesn't even care for Piccolo, which Piccolo kind of takes offense to. He inherited Demon King Piccolo's will. He should be a higher priority. But he gets it. Frieza's been after the Saiyans for a while, and Granolah's obviously been with them for a while too. Honestly, he probably cares most about Broly at the moment, but Paragus warns them, it's going to be an all-out war. Frieza's going to use everything he can against them. Not that they're really too concerned, because they already fought most of his stuff. Broly was the worst he could throw at them. And the only reason he sent Broly here was because he just can't be in two places at once. Frieza's confident in his own strength, and he'll definitely want to handle this alone. Their judgment is exactly right too. Frieza wants to be the one to kill the Saiyans. He sent Broly there basically just as a scout. Honestly, if Broly killed them, he would have been pretty mad and probably would have taken his anger out on Broly. So he's glad that it worked out. They know Frieza's far too prideful to let someone else do it. Especially after all this time chasing them, Frieza wants to be the one to end it. So he's focused on his own strength. He has an army again, but they're not going to do anything. It's going to be a battle between Frieza and the Saiyans. But then three people appear out of nowhere. Beerus, Whis, and Kakarot. Kakarot basically came to catch up on everything, and Beerus came as another trip to get some more food. Kakarot just wanted to come to make sure everything here's alright, and also tell him what's going on Beerus' planet. Granolah and Minato are glad to see him. With Kakarot a bit confused to see that the other Saiyan that just came here, he's apparently working with Granolah. And on top of that, Piccolo's here, and he's not trying to kill them. Kakarot was actually the one to request to come here. He told Beerus he can go off on his own and get some food. Kakarot just needed to catch up with Granolah for a bit. And Kakarot even thanks Piccolo for his help, with Piccolo saying it was just so they could take over Earth on his own. He clarifies, they're not allies. Kakarot's pretty intrigued to meet Broly too. He heard a bit about him from Whis. He'd love to have everyone here come to Beerus' planet, but he's not sure if Beerus wants that. He can't just invite them himself. But Granolah says it's fine. It's better to have someone here on Earth anyways, and besides, he likes staying here regardless. Plus, he and Piccolo are working on their own thing, and Broly needs to be here too. It's better that they're split up. Kakarot gets info about everything that's going on, but eventually leaves to go back to Beerus' planet. He wishes everyone luck as he leaves, and Beerus tells him to not let this planet get destroyed, otherwise he'll kill them, if they're not already killed by the planet blowing up. Cause he's coming back here for more food. And it's so strange too for Granolah. He's seen the Saiyans slowly grow softer over time, but it's so weird to see Kakarot being surprisingly kind and considerate, at least by Saiyan standards, and Piccolo has an idea regarding what they should do for training. He takes Broly and Granolah to the time chamber. Let's go over to Frieza for a bit, because we haven't really seen much of him recently. But while on the topic of time chambers, Frieza never found that one place where he could train for 10 years. But he still has been training like we mentioned. He never does go to Earth either, at least not just yet. He's had scouts watching the planet the entire time, and they just gave him word that one of the Saiyans showed up there out of nowhere, but at the same time, Beerus was there too. And Frieza says he could wait a little bit longer. He wants to make sure all the Saiyans are there. He could kill them one by one, but he'd rather not do that. It's more enjoyable to kill them when they're all together. Single-handedly taking them all down at once, that'll be much more fun. And on top of that, Beerus was there, so he couldn't really risk it. As far as he knows, Beerus is still stronger than him. Hopefully not for long though, because Frieza's continued growing. Especially after Granolah fighting Broly, he started training even more, and hearing about King Cold's death, which he doesn't really care about, he's just more so angered about the betrayal. All the more reason for him to continue training. From the time Broly first came to Earth up until now, there's a 2-year passage of time. And it's getting kind of uneasy. Earth being peaceful for this long, it's kind of unnerving. Although over this time, Broly, Granolah, and Piccolo have actually become allies. They did spend some time in the time chamber, especially because Piccolo reconstructed it, with Minaito's help too. It took a bit, but they recrafted it so that they can go in it for more time, instead of them being limited to 2 years for their entire life. And because of this uneasiness, they decide they should probably just attack Frieza instead. They don't know what he's planning, and maybe he's just growing stronger in the meantime. It's probably better to stop him before he gets the chance to get here. And on top of that, it's better to fight somewhere that's not Earth. They have been waiting for the Saiyans to return, but they haven't really heard much from them. They've seen Kakarot pop in from time to time, and even Vegeta came here at one point. But Kakarot's basically just been the messenger, and only came here when Beerus wanted more food. Other than that, the Saiyans have been training constantly, and they can't really wait any longer, nor can Frieza. Paragus asks if they're sure they want to do this, and they are sure. He pulls out one of his old scouters, hoping it still works, and he sends a transmission to Frieza, telling him where to meet. They're settling this now. They take a ship to a planet a few solar systems away, one that actually has a breathable environment so they can breathe there, because obviously that's important. With their current power, they feel like they're more than enough to defeat Frieza. And finally, after all this time, they see Frieza. Frieza's a bit disappointed that it's only 3 of them, but he'll have a fun time still. He's needed someone to test out his power against. He's sure they're well aware of this by now, as he transforms, going into Golden Frieza. The other 3 show off their strength. Piccolo goes orange, Granolah goes into his ultimate form, and Broly, he goes Super Saiyan. Not only having unlocked this form, but controlling it too. He's the powerhouse of the group, and he immediately launches in, manhandling Frieza. Of course, Frieza's grown a ton as well. He's in his true golden state. He has perfect control over his golden form, since he's had it for more than long enough. Not just that, he's stronger too. As for Broly, right now he's about around as strong as he was in the Broly movie when he was Super Saiyan. Plus he's controlled, so an added bonus. As for Piccolo, he's relative to where Broly is at the moment. Granolah in Ultimate is the weakest in the group right now, about as strong as current Ultimate Piccolo right in this story. Collectively, they just about meet Frieza's power, which surprises Frieza too because he's grown really strong and he didn't expect all 3 of them together to be around his level. Broly acts as the main attacker with Piccolo and Granolah being the support. If this is Frieza's strength, they might actually be able to do this, especially because they're not at their full power yet. It's a shame the Saiyans aren't here to help, but maybe it's better because this way, they can catch Frieza by surprise. Granolah's actually ascended Ultimate in his own way. Piccolo realized that he and Granolah had their power awaken in similar ways. Granted, their stories are very different, but each of them has some sort of power derived from the Dragon Balls. A power awakening from them. So Piccolo wondered if Granolah had something beyond his own ultimate form, and after all this time, he finally did find it. He doesn't have perfect control over it, but the power more than makes up for that. They don't drag this fight out, they want to make it as quick as possible. So he transforms. His hair starts flowing more, and it gains a silverish tint, not turning completely silver, but his hair looks lighter than normal. His double red eyes shift to a blue color, and a dark blue aura surrounds him. In this form, all of his senses are heightened, not just his vision, but everything else. And even though his vision was amazing before, it's evolved even further too. So much so that he has a sort of foresight. This is his limitless form. A fitting name with him breaking his limits, and also with the obvious reference I'm going for. With astonishing speed, he then launches towards Frieza. Every attack he uses is perfect accuracy, just like before. But on top of that, he has instant reactions. Any attacks that come his way from Frieza, he knows exactly how to react to them and stop them. Basically, he has all the benefits of Ultra Instinct, but focused more on offense and requiring conscious movements rather than unconscious movements. As long as he outspeeds Frieza, which he does,
he's going to be more than fine. They each power up to their maximum, attacking with great speed too, and Frieza's actually feeling the pressure. He's being beaten, surprisingly. They're pushing him back more and more. Slowly, they're winning. And eventually, they do win. They beat Frieza. After all this time, it was that quick, and they didn't even need the Saiyans' help. They just did it themselves. They can't believe how strong they've gotten. The fact that they actually defeated Frieza here, it worked. He's lying on the ground beaten, and Granolah steps up to him, ready to finish him off. But something's wrong. With Granolah's heightened senses, he could tell that Frieza seems fine, actually. He looks injured on the surface, but he's completely calm. His heart rate is normal. And Granolah could see something snap within Frieza, like something that was holding his ki back. A floodgate of sorts. It opens. Frieza smiles, then laughing even. He tells them well done. That was a really fun fight, especially in his golden form. He was curious how it matched up to them. It's a shame Granolah saw through his act though, because he was going to surprise attack them. Unfortunately, he can't kill them here because he still needs them to draw the Saiyans out. And again, he wants to kill everyone together. But he can at least give them a taste of his power here. Frieza vanishes from sight. All that's left is a trail of purple flames from his aura. Broly then suddenly goes into his base form, falling unconscious. The same happens with Piccolo. Granolah's the only one that could see what's happening, thanks to his heightened senses and all, but still, this is way too fast for him. And for a brief second, he is able to see what they're up against. His limitless form even lets him react to Frieza's attacks. Not that that does much though, because of how much Frieza overpowers them. But in that last moment of consciousness, he sees Frieza. He's taken on a completely new form. He's still shiny, but instead of the golden color, Frieza's now coated in black and silver. This is his true full power, Black Frieza. As Frieza finishes off this fight, the Saiyans on Beerus' planet decide it's time to move out. Kakarot tells them it's time, especially because they've been watching through Whis' staff, looking at what's been going on. Kakarot's a bit annoyed that Granolah decided to move out that quickly. But it makes sense, especially without them hearing from the Saiyans in a while. Vegeta wonders if they're truly ready after seeing that display of power. And honestly, Kakarot's not too sure either, but they obviously have to do something here. They have to try and stop Frieza, even if they can't really do it. But even with that insane power that they're up against, one thing's for sure. Kakarot's starting to feel excited. As Frieza leaves the planet, he hears a voice in his head. Whis is projecting Vegeta's voice to him. Vegeta asks why he's running away, and Frieza said that fight simply wasn't enough to entertain him. Plus, it's like he's always wanted. He wants to kill everyone at once, not just individually. It doesn't seem fair that way. Not that he cares about fairness, but it makes him seem stronger if he does this all at once. Plus, what's the point in testing out his power if there's only a few people to use it against? Besides, out of those three, he really only cared about Broly, who recently did betray him after all. He's still more focused on the other four Saiyans though, and asks why Vegeta won't come out to fight. And Vegeta says they will fight soon. They'll settle this. Frieza may have grown powerful, but this is gonna go exactly like last time. He'll lose again, and this time Vegeta says he'll make sure to kill Frieza. But Frieza simply tells him to work this into his schedule. He's gotten quite busy, and the idea of revenge is not really at the front of his mind. He does want the Saiyans dead after all, but it's not his main priority. He has a whole empire to run. Plus, he's so confident in his power that he's not really too worried either, especially because now that they're talking in his head, they must have seen his black form. He can't wait to use it against them. Vegeta and his crew get to Granolah, with Granolah apologizing for them too, being the only one that's conscious at the moment. Beerus and Whis talk amongst themselves too. They were the transport here after all. Whis wonders if this battle with Frieza will be enough to push them beyond their limits. It seems those three from Earth were able to do so already. And Beerus is kinda curious as to how strong Frieza truly is. There's no way he could be above him at the moment, right? Either way, it should be pretty interesting to watch the Saiyans fight. At their current power, the four of them are far stronger than he could have ever imagined. But Kakarot apologizes to Granolah too. He shouldn't have been gone so long. Same for the rest of them. Raditz says it makes sense that they want to attack that soon, especially not realizing where Frieza is in terms of power. Their last gauge of his strength was when he first turned golden. Although he was pretty strong back then too. And Nappa didn't realize he would be this strong. They underestimated his strength far more than they realized. Even without Frieza spending 10 years on that planet where he trained in the manga, Frieza's regular training has still been more than enough, especially because he's doing it pretty consistently over the course of all these years that the story's been going on. At least after his first defeat. He's trained way more than the Saiyans realized. But it's the same for the Saiyans. Frieza doesn't realize how strong they've grown too, and Nappa says those years of training haven't been for nothing. They've been hard at work, and Raditz proclaims that they've gone beyond godhood. Vegeta can see that these three have grown a lot as well. And after hearing about another Saiyan landing on Earth, he and the others are finally glad to meet Broly. He does seem pretty interesting, especially with that latent strength he has. Considering he's that strong with just regular Super Saiyan, it's pretty incredible. Kakarot asks Whis if he could heal the group, but Beerus stops it. He wants to see how they're going to handle this even with that issue. They're not going to give help. Alright, that's fine. Take them to Earth then. They go back to Earth, and then he asks Minato to heal them. With how much Minato's healed everyone, he's grown beyond his limits too. So he could heal people this powerful. Oh, so they didn't even need Whis anyways. At least for this. And now with them back on Earth, Vegeta meets Paragus as well. Same for the rest of the Saiyans. Hearing how strong the Saiyans are and seeing how strong Granolah and Piccolo were, he's given up on taking revenge against Vegeta, especially with them having a common enemy right now. Not to mention, Broly's already on their side, and he's the weapon that Paragus had, so there's no way he could even use Broly against them. He still blames Chilai and Lemmo for that. But it doesn't matter. If this were a few years ago when he was first meeting Vegeta, he'd definitely attack right now. But Paragus just wants this over with. He's enjoyed peace for a little bit. Briefly being here on Earth, even with the threat of Frieza looming over, after wasting so much of his life on Vampa, experiencing this peace for once is pretty nice, and he kinda wants to keep that. The only way of doing that would be giving up his grudge against Vegeta and helping them to defeat Frieza. Paragus simply wishes them luck. So now the group has the plan. They could head out right now and fight him. But it looks like they won't even need to do that because a Frieza Force ship then descends on the planet. They can immediately sense his power too. It's Frieza himself. He came directly to Earth. He steps off the ship looking pretty happy too. He was waiting for all of them to be here in one spot, and he wants to scorch the Earth in the process too, since they've grown pretty fond of it. That'll make their death much more entertaining for him. So this is all perfect for him. He was able to draw them out all together and to the place where he wanted to fight them. This is going to be way more fun and fulfilling for him. And you know, he won't completely destroy Earth. Of course, he's going to scorch it and kill everyone on here, but who knows, maybe there's some value in selling this planet. And it looks like Granolah too. It's just going to be like what he did to Planet Cereal. Except this time he doesn't need Saiyans to help him. He's going to single-handedly wipe out everyone on this planet and then sell it to the highest bidder. The group cautiously gets ready. 5 Saiyan warriors, plus Granolah and Piccolo Jr. This is all still weird for Piccolo too. The stuff Frieza's saying is stuff that he would have said a while ago. But now given his circumstances, he's actually the one defending Earth. He should have used these past few years to take over it himself, but maybe something's changing in him, and he doesn't even realize it. And Frieza's glad to finally get rid of everyone here. No more Saiyans to annoy him. As for Piccolo, no more competition, because while King Piccolo's crew wasn't really too big, soon enough they might have become actual competition for Frieza. And as for Granolah, that's a blemish on his resume. The Saiyans were supposed to wipe out everyone on that planet after all, so he didn't really accomplish the job that he wanted. Plus, it's another person in this rebellion group, so of course he has to go. Minato, Paragus, Chilai, and Lemmo watch from nearby, as Vegeta, Nappa, Raditz, and Kakarot go Super Saiyan Blue Evolution, which amazes Granolah to see because he didn't even realize they had this. With the 4 of them together, they've not only ascended Super Saiyan God, but even ascended that ascension of it. Of course, they got Super Saiyan Blue. But by now, with the 4 of them constantly training together for the past few years, they've evolved beyond that. Frieza then instantly goes into his black form. Now, of course, Black Frieza didn't get as many years of training as he did in the manga, but he's still incredibly powerful, although not unstoppable. Plus, this form isn't flawless either. He's worked on it for a while, and can maintain the power pretty well, which is why no one was sensing it before. He was able to actually suppress it a bit. But it's not like he's using it with 100% efficiency. He's still redoing the whole process he did for his true golden form. It's a shame King Cold never trained like him too, because he might have gotten this as well, although his father was far too prideful, but Frieza grew past that pride. That pride is what killed him in the end against Broly. His father may have brought him back from near dead, but clearly he didn't have the same dedication as Frieza, so he doesn't even care that he's gone. And it's kind of a shame too. He really wanted to use his golden form against them because it's a mockery of their Super Saiyan form, but they've all moved beyond that. Oh well, he much prefers this black and silver color rather than that one. He'll look much better doing this. The 5 begin fighting as the 3 others get ready to jump in too. Before, Frieza wasn't sure if he was stronger than the gods, but now he could actually test it out. Plus, Beerus and Whis are watching from nearby too. He wants to give them a really good show. With Beerus a little bit concerned, Frieza does actually seem stronger than they thought. Is Frieza truly above a god of destruction at this point? They'll have to wait and see. He's clearly not at full power yet. Piccolo then goes into his orange form, with Granolah going into his limitless form. And they tell Broly to not hold back this time. Even if he goes berserk, they have to use everything they can. He goes into Super Saiyan, but then starts transforming beyond that too. Of course, with all the time they've had training, he's had access to his full power form, but he's much more prone to going berserk in that. And he was never able to use against Frieza because he wanted to remain coherent the entire time by using just regular Super Saiyan. It's a 50-50 shot if he goes berserk or not in this. And he was about to use it in the last battle, but by the time he decided to, he was knocked out before he could. But he pulls it off here, going into a controlled full power form. It wouldn't have made much difference there anyways, but hopefully it could help out here. An all-out battle begins, a 7v1. And Frieza's really enjoying himself. They're using everything they've got, and they're only using it to fight one person. He gets to see what they've learned in these past few years. They've grown so much as martial artists. Not only has their strength grown considerably, but their attacks, the synergy that they fight with, their strategies, all the techniques they're using. It's truly incredible. These look like completely different warriors from the Saiyans that he knew before, which just makes it better that Frieza's defeating them at the moment. He's loving all of this. Plus, with 7 of them attacking at once, it does get a little bit hectic. You can't really have 7 people deliver a simultaneous melee attack after all. The Saiyans try and push Frieza as far into the atmosphere as possible without going into space. This way, Earth does stay safe, and they could fight more. Nappa looks to Raditz and says he hasn't felt this thrill in a while. Raditz can't believe it either. To think that he's grown this strong, And not just that, but a low-class warrior at this level. The four of them are about on par with each other. Of course, there's slight discrepancies, but it's not like before. Years ago, Raditz was basically useless fodder to them, and the four of them didn't even work as a team, really. But now that's completely changed. Everyone's pulling their weight. And even though it seems like Frieza's winning at the moment, Vegeta sees an opportunity. He wants Frieza to witness the true power of the Saiyans. This is a combo they've created, and they all get ready. Quickly, everyone backs off, with Piccolo, Granolah, and Broly a bit lost, but they also back off too. Frieza then spins around, launching a bunch of lasers and ki blasts at them. A dazzling light show illuminates the earth. Around the world, this light show can be witnessed too. It's like a worldwide display of fireworks. The group desperately tries to dodge all of them, but Nappa doesn't. He prepares his ultimate move, an evolved version of his giant storm. His ki flares up dramatically, and all the ki blasts that Frieza's launching, they all coalesce towards him somehow. Straining himself, Nappa warps all the ki blasts around him, putting them into his own attack. They then all swirl under Frieza, forming into a massive geyser that launches upwards. This is his newest attack, Cataclysmic Cyclone. Frieza puts two hands down and pushes it downwards, but someone flies above him, with Raditz quickly launching his ultimate attack, an evolved Double Sunday which he calls Leap Year. Frieza's caught between an attack pushing him down and an attack pushing him upwards, although the one from below is a lot stronger, given that it's using his own attacks too. Very impressive. They're fighting a lot more interestingly now. They're getting creative with their attacks too. Well done. But something in front of Frieza catches his eye. A Gamma Burst flash from Vegeta. He tries to escape backwards, but something then hits him in the back. Surprisingly enough, Piccolo joins in too, using a Makanko Sappo, commenting that he thought this attack would be enough to penetrate through Frieza, but it seems not. But thankfully, with all the Saiyans attacking, he had more than enough time to charge this. Okay, well, Frieza still has the sides to escape too. This won't be tough. Plus, these four attacks do sting a bit, but with all of them together, it's not going to be enough to kill him. But then on one side, he sees Broly launch a blast from his mouth. And on the other side, Granolah has both his hands pointed out like guns, launching a rapid flurry of ki blasts. From four sides around him, as well as above and below, Frieza's facing 6 different attacks. Slowly, he starts to form a barrier around him, briefly pushing all these back. Someone's missing. It's one of the Saiyans. It's that low-class one. He's lost track of him, and Frieza then senses something nearby. Quickly, he turns over to where it is, but it disappears, with Kakarot moving quickly and vanishing behind him, entering the barrier that Frieza's in. It was nice of him to create this, and Frieza could see that Kakarot's fist is glowing, very violently too. It's vibrating, and the barrier that they're inside is shaking. Kakarot could feel it, his ki's flaring up, his power skyrockets. It's almost as if the spirit of rebellion itself is empowering him. But slowly all the attacks stop. Well, not really. Granolah starts to warp every attack around him, using all of his power to try and control them. He'll basically act as a catalyst for their attacks, redirecting them. Their beams all start warping around Frieza. And using his heightened senses and everything with his limitless form, he individually targets each of these attacks, taking all of his focus and power to do so. With him condensing these attacks too to make them more accurate, he could tell they're going to win here. All these attacks are aimed at Frieza's vital points. And now Frieza's feeling stunned. What is this power he's feeling? This form should have been enough. But Kakarot says against them, it's not going to work. He realized this long ago. Frieza was bored into his power and he got far too comfortable, especially without facing any real losses besides against them. He wasn't prepared for this, as strong as he might be. Sure, he might have trained, but how many times has he been in a real fight like this? Especially with that form that he's using. It does seem pretty unstable. Hard work got them all here. Even though Frieza surprisingly showed up on Earth, they were still prepared. And this is what's going to lead to his downfall. Frieza tells Kakarot he's scum, a useless piece of low-class trash. Those Saiyans don't even like him. But Kakarot says he couldn't be more wrong. The ki around Kakarot's fist continues to charge up even further, with all the attacks continuing to hurt Frieza too, as he tries to hold them off. But Kakarot then grips his other hand around Frieza's neck. Kakarot tells Frieza his circumstances didn't mold him. He made his own destiny in life. The class he was born into didn't dictate who he was. He was destined to be a weak warrior, possibly one that would have died on planet Vegeta. And he didn't even realize his father was the first one to break that cycle of being stuck as a low-class warrior that's not exceptional at all. And Kakarot's continued that legacy, especially with his brother. What he is right now is a powerful, godly warrior. Frieza says he should have killed him a while ago when he had the chance. And Kakarot smirks. It's too late for that now. Although, he kinda gets that sentiment. They should have killed him a while back too. But this time they won't make the same mistake. He holds a fist up to Frieza's chest and delivers a 1-inch punch. But it's no normal punch. All of Kakarot's ki enters Frieza. He's felt the pain like he's never felt before, especially with all the attacks still hitting him on every other side, with Granolah thankfully redirecting them so they don't hurt Kakarot either. But then, there's a powerful purple explosion. That was no regular ki attack either. Beerus watches from the sidelines elated. He can't believe it. Kakarot just pulled off a Hakai. That's amazing, and it's an actual one too, not a fake Hakai. The Saiyans have all practiced this, but no one has pulled it off yet on this scale at least. Kakarot used the momentum from this to launch him back too. As Frieza's chest starts getting erased, he screams in agony, as the rest of the attacks finish him off too. Kakarot used all his ki on that, but he's going to add one more of his own too, charging an ultimate rebellion trigger. With the power of these 7 warriors combined, just barely, they're able to win here.
killing Frieza, with him slowly being erased by Kakarot's Hakai. They did it. They won. Another ship flies over to the area, and a familiar face steps off, watching as everyone powers down, looking all beat up too. Vegeta recognizes who it is. It's Bulma. He yells out at her to be more careful. Why is she over here? And Bulma tells him to relax. She's been watching this entire time and she's been fine. Plus it's all over now. And she makes fun of him too. What, is he starting to care about her? She hasn't seen him in so long. Where have they been? Vegeta blushes and yells at her. Stop patronizing him. The other Saiyans all laugh at this. They should have expected her to be here too. A few days pass. Everyone now knows what paths are going to go down. After all this time, Monaido's finally able to wish Planet Cereal back. They've waited so long to do this. And they're going to go back there. Monaido even suggests that Piccolo should become Guardian of Earth. He might not realize it, but he's got good in him somewhere. In their time together, he's shown Piccolo how to make his own set of Dragon Balls too if he ever decides. Now, Piccolo turns this down, but it does stick with him. Him, as a Guardian, he can never see that. Granolah thanks everyone for everything too. He's finally got his home back, and he could return. The Saiyans that he thought were his enemies before, they saved him if anything, and made him stronger than ever, and they helped bring his planet back. Kakarot says that's not the case though. It wasn't them that did it. Granolah's strength was molded on his own. They weren't even here in those few years that he was training. Even after wishing for power, that was basically just a catalyst for Granolah. Kakarot reminds him, it's hard work that got him here. Everything beyond that wish was his own work. He holds out the same hand that he used to kill Frieza, with Granolah smiling, shaking it. He tells Kakarot this won't be the last they see of each other. He knows where to find them because Bulma told the rest of the Saiyans to stay here. It took a lot of convincing for Vegeta, but he reluctantly agreed. And she's pretty happy that they decided to stay. She could already tell they've adapted to Earth after all. Vegeta's already wearing Earth clothes that she gave him. Broly and Paragus also have nowhere else to go, so they stay here too. Same for Chi Lai and Lemo. Besides, Paragus is old. He spent long enough fighting. Now that this war is finally over, he can enjoy that peace that he briefly got to experience. And clearly, Vegeta isn't as bad as he thought, so maybe he shouldn't kill him. It might be nice to retire here. Raditz then puts a hand on Kakarot's shoulder. They've finally done it. Their father would be proud. Sending Kakarot to their crew was probably the best thing he could have ever done, at least as far as Raditz knows. He wonders how things would have gone if he sent him somewhere else. Well, who knows? The brothers watch as Granolah's ship goes into space. Just like Granolah, just like Paragus and Broly, they're free from their past. Their story is one of inherited wills, a story of breaking free from the past that trapped them, and breaking out of the barriers that were placed in their life. The four Saiyans all broke free from that. And the fact that Raditz and Kakarot are actually acting brotherly now, that should be more than enough to prove that. Kakarot's not only accepted, but exceptional. He's done something amazing with his crew. And this is where we end the story. What do you guys think about this story as a whole? Let me know your thoughts below. I'd love to see what you think. As usual, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really does help out the channel and shows me you want to see more like this. Anyways, thank you all for watching, thanks for supporting the scenario all the way through, and I'll see you all in my next video.